Hello, my name is Court Jones, and I'm excited to be offering a course on the art of caricature at Proko.com. If you don't know me, I'm a caricature illustrator and fine art portrait painter. My course will be organized into two parts. It's designed for both the caricature novice and the experienced professional. The first part of the course will cover the fundamentals of caricature design. I'll teach the founding principles of exaggeration and walk you through my process of creating the original concept for the caricature, and then how to refine that concept into a detailed and well-structured finished drawing. The second half of the course is more advanced and will be filled with practical exercises that I've developed over the years for getting past creative obstacles, fixing problematic drawings, and creating more extreme exaggerations while still maintaining a likeness. You may be wondering, why study caricature? You want to do traditional art, or comics, or illustration. Well, just like portrait drawing, figure drawing, and anatomy, caricature is yet another tool in your arsenal that will give you the knowledge and ability to control exactly how you draw your subjects. And I've discovered that in the world of commercial illustration, the ability to exaggerate and capture a likeness is an extremely valuable asset to clients and art directors. It broadens your skill set and makes you much more marketable. Caricature is the key to understanding likeness. And caricature is just plain fun.
Hello, Court.
Hey!
How's it going today?
I'm very good, thanks.
So you said a lot of things in that ad in there. I think today we're going to go over some of those, and people can actually ask questions where they can't normally ask them to a video.
That's right.
So just so you guys all know, today we're here because of that Black Friday ad that you might have seen before. You can save 20% off on all of the courses and tools on Proko right now. Thank you, John. He included this thing right here. You're a hero. So you guys can save right now until the end of the month. That's including Court's course on caricature. I guess, Court, you had some process videos for the piece that you're going to be showing today.
Yeah, so it's going to require a little setup. I love doing like mashups. I love doing art imitation or art style imitations of famous artists. I love incorporating that into my work, whether it's just for fun or for a client. Like I've done a lot of theatrical illustrations over the years, and some of them whenever I get a chance, I like to do sort of a vintage Arthur Rackham storybook illustration style. And I just find it works really well for like things like, Peter Pan or Cinderella or different shows. And I love the golden age of illustration in general, but Arthur Rackham in particular, his inks and watercolors are just so beautiful. He did a whole bunch of famous illustrations for Alice in Wonderland that were always really inspiring. So so I'll be doing that. I'll be showing some of my own past work that I've done in this style, as well as Arthur Rackham's originals to familiarize people who maybe don't know who he is. And then I'm going to actually do a complete illustration from, well, I wouldn't say from start to finish because I've already started it, but from the middle to finish, hopefully by the end of today in that style. And I'm going to talk about how I get that vintage antique look. I have a few tricks in Photoshop up my sleeve, but mostly it's just honest drawing and painting. It's not really a lot of tricks, but there are a few things that digital media really helps with.
Yeah, some workflow stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you want to start taking people through these videos here? I'm going to give you control.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, before I do that, that's actually, can I actually do, just share my screen? Because I wanted to show the, who Arthur Rackham is first before we even get into my illustration. Let's see. I've got, I'm going to open this up here. Okay. I'm just going to bring this over to my screen. Arthur Rackham, he worked turn of the century, basically, mostly was really famous the early first 10 or 20 years of the 20th century. Let me make that a little bigger. There we go. He has this ink and watercolor style that I think is just gorgeous. It's very subtle, muted colors, but a lot of that is probably just due to the, aged reproductions themselves. I don't know, they maybe were a little more vibrant in person when they were originally made, but I just love the vintage look they have now, whether it's because of age and degradation, but they're sort of sepia toned, muted, but really fun style. He's clearly an excellent draftsman. He paints or he draws very realistically, but he can sometimes do really fanciful, whimsical characters like elves and trolls and fairies. Like here's an Alice in Wonderland one that's particularly, I think this is just beautiful with how aged it looks and how
Yeah.
faded and washed out everything is.
It's like a bleed with like where the darker ink, it like has that soft edge to it.
Exactly, yeah. And I found out a way, or I created a way myself to create that bleed look that I'm going to be going over today. Famous another Alice in Wonderland illustration. But I love the use of pen and ink. It's very controlled. It's, mine is a little more chaotic and sort of loosey-goosey when I do my inking. And so whenever I do a study or something in the style of an artist like him, I'll try to replicate that more controlled look that he has. A little more reserved, maybe not go quite so crazy with the cross-hatching, because he actually does a lot of the description of the forms with watercolors and not just the ink cross-hatching. Like if you take away all the watercolors in this illustration, there's not much going on in this, in this turtle. There's a lot of done just with very, very subtle halftone control.
This is great. I've never seen this piece before.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is another from Alice in Wonderland, the mock turtle and the griffin, I think.
That's good.
That's actually one of my favorite pieces. I just love these designs.
Do you like Charles Vess's work?
I'm not familiar.
He did the Stardust book with Neil Gaiman.
No, I didn't. Wasn't aware of him.
Yeah, there's some overlap in rendering style here.
Oh, good.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, I'm excited to see how you've adapted this to yours.
Yeah, so here is let's see, mine. I just have a few images to show here, not a lot. Let me drag this over. So this was a piece I did for a ballet company. That was my first sort of Rackham style illustration. I didn't do any color. I just did ink, but you can see the influence, especially in the design of the griffin here. So
yeah.
The crazy characters from Alice in Wonderland.
And even the posture of Alice in here. I think, like with like the very straight neck.
Mm-hmm. And since it was for a ballet production of Alice in Wonderland, I put her in ballet slippers and tried to do a graceful ballet pose, and that informed it a little bit. A fun little side note about this, actually, it was this piece when I put it on my website that the band Tally Hall, they found this, they saw this, and they liked the ink style, so they wanted me to do something similar for their first album on I think it was on Warner Brothers Records. So I did an album cover for Tally Hall called Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum, and it's all pen and ink with a touch of color. But yeah, it was this sort of style, and they're actually a great band. I love their music. I love that album so much. Came out around 2006, 2007, something like that.
That's
they
awesome.
only did a couple albums. They're not around anymore, I guess. They just do solo stuff.
That's how that goes.
Yeah. So here's like a Peter Pan I had done. This is getting a little. I was experimenting more with the vintage look, using like backgrounds that were sort of like old paper backgrounds to give it that aged effect.
No, I like it. Like
another. Sorry?
The way that you worked in with the desaturated bottom. Oh yeah, like with the cityscape on the bottom is good for composition. That's great.
Yeah, and a lot of these too, they have a lot of empty space in it because I had to leave room for all the words and text of like the show information. So there was concerns about that too. Like the same thing here, I had to put a lot of space at the bottom so they could actually put the show information. But I like this one a little more than the first one actually. It's a very similar concept, just executed a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
So an old Snow White I did for a company. Again, really leaning heavily on that aged parchment look.
Absolutely.
And this one is probably the one that's the most sort of Rackham, most vintage. It's for the ballet called The Wild Swans, which I think was a Grimm fairy tale, where this princess had 11 brothers turned into swans or something.
Yeah, you definitely, you're nailing the diffusion off of the dark inks here. Because it feels like so when you look at an older print, it almost feels like you can like touch and feel just the blackest of inks. Like it feels like that you could touch this and feel it just be slightly raised from the page.
Yeah. And pretty much all of these, I think all of them, maybe all of them, were inked traditionally on paper, and I scanned them and I just colored everything digitally. For today's demo, I'm going to do everything digital just because it's easier to demonstrate. It's like doing the camera setup here is a little hard for me.
Yeah.
I can do it, but it's the quality's not always great.
We're in the same spot. And we do this like every week. It's still a pain in the butt.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's Arthur Rackham, and that's the method, or that's some of the results that I've gotten trying to do that style. So Yeah, today's illustration, what I'm going to be doing is I wanted to do something from The Office, one of my favorite television shows. And I was thinking about, I guess I didn't know at first if I wanted to do a mashup style, if it was just going to be a straight up caricature of someone from The Office or an illustration depicting a scene. And it's one of those things where it just came in a moment of inspiration where I just like Rackham style, fairy tale illustration. And then I thought about what are sort of the things in The Office that are visually kind of like would be fun to do, like Kevin's famous chili or some different things. And then I remember the Prison Mike episode from season 3, episode 9. If you want to go check out The Office, it's where there's an ex-con in the office, and everyone thinks that prison sounds like better than working in the office when they hear him talk about what prison life was like. Mm-hmm. So Michael Scott does his Prison Mike character where he talks about how awful prison was. He's trying to scare them straight, so he puts a bandana on his head. We can't really show the clip here, but it's really funny. He makes up all this stuff that he gets from like TV and just stuff he makes up about what prison life is like.
Yeah.
He said, they only give you gruel sandwiches to eat, and you can also eat your own hair. And then someone asked him, what's the worst part about, prison Mike? And he said, the worst part was the Dementors. And they're like, what, from Harry Potter? He was like, yeah, they suck your soul out, and it hurts. It hurts. But thank you for listening to me, sharing my time with you because you got a good life. It's just, he's so ridiculous. And I thought, you know what? That sounds like a tall tale or a fairy tale that I could illustrate in the Arthur Rackham style. So I decided to work on thumbnail concepts, working that out, how to best depict the Prison Mike, like what his prison in his mind, what it would have been like. Mm-hmm. If it was illustrated in a fairy tale in an Arthur Rackham style. So we can go ahead and play the thumbnails. I just worked out the ideas here visually. There's let's see, is that the first one? Yeah, not. Let me go ahead and I'll go ahead and scrub through this. This is a time lapse, but I'll make it a little faster here for us. So I just have Mike sitting in his cell. I didn't really know how to do the architecture of the cell, but I knew I wanted the Dementor in there. And I also had the idea of putting someone else from The Office in just to spice it up a little bit. So I thought if anyone else was going to be in prison with Prison Mike, it would have been Creed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's a great character. He has such a weird spotted past. He's probably one of my favorite characters besides Kevin.
Yeah, Creed is very good.
Yeah. But so I was trying to figure out how would he be a cellmate? Would he be from an adjoining cell or sticking his head through a hole in the wall? So I'm just, just visually working out how to arrange this. So that was my first concept here with the Dementor hovering over Mike, but this one didn't quite work. So I moved on to another one, just a whole different arrangement. I really wanted it to feel more like a cell and not so opened up. So I had the Dementor coming in through the window and a couple rats and a bowl of gruel on the bottom, on the floor there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I also like to do a bit of quick shading here just to visually see how the balance or the distribution of the forms would look with value and tones. So that didn't quite work out. I just wasn't in love with that. But I thought, okay, hovering over Mike, that's good. Yeah, it's very more menacing if the Dementor is hovering over Mike.
I think definitely getting to figure it out beforehand with the light and shadow that you were doing, it does a lot to really inform what your composition is.
Yeah, of course. The thing is with Arthur Rackham, he doesn't use values and colors the same way I do. So in my thumbnails here, it's going to be a lot more contrast and darkness that I think I'm going to end up going with, because a lot of his illustrations, like of interior scenes, some were dark, but a lot were light. He didn't really play with realistic lighting and shadows so much. He just kind of did like spot color without like cast shadows or form shadows. If you saw that from some of the pieces I showed, because he's keeping things simple and he was inventing these things, so he didn't have a lot of realistic lighting to go off of. Mm-hmm. Another thought I had here was to make Creed like an elf come in through the window, so he'd be a little smaller, so I could fit him in, and then maybe adding a second Dementor up at the top to make it more menacing. But again, it still didn't quite have the feeling I wanted. It didn't feel claustrophobic enough, like a prison cell. Mm-hmm. And I researched actual dungeons and medieval prison cells to get some ideas and inspiration for the actual interiors. So this is what I ended up going with, something a little more like this. But this is still, of course, just the thumbnail. Mm-hmm. And I changed the bowl of gruel into a gruel sandwich, which makes no sense, but that's what Prison Mike said that they eat in prison. And also you can eat your own hair. So he's holding a wad full of his hair. But yeah, so this is the idea I think I ended up going with. Yeah, let's go ahead and switch to video 2, the next one in line here. So this is the thumbnail concept that worked out the best. And from this, I'm going to make a rough sketch. Again, not using much photo reference, just kind of inventing it a little bit, especially with the Dementor from Harry Potter. I know what they kind of look like, so I was just inventing cool, fun fabrics. But yeah, go ahead and play the second one here. Yeah, so I just dimmed down the layer of the thumbnail sketch and then just kind of traced it, but traced it with a little more thought and care for this rough sketch. Yeah, so
just really set it all in stone now.
Yeah, I'm really getting more specific here with the design. I noticed in Rackham's illustrations, there was one that really inspired me. It was from the Cask of Amontillado, the Edgar Allan Poe story, where a guy was being walled up in a prison cell. I observed how Rackham did a lot of his stones. A lot of them were different sizes. I'm like, oh, that's good. I shouldn't make them all the same size. So I learned a lot by studying the source material and figuring out how to design this space. So yeah, so there's the background. And then Prison Mike thinking, this is just a rough sketch. I did it really quickly. At least the face part I didn't spend too much time on. The final drawing gets better than this, trust me. Just figuring out the anatomy and the pose a little bit more specifically. I ended up actually taking a picture of myself in this pose just to get the feet and the hands right. But I'm not gonna share that picture.
I do like this is supposed to be like your thumbnailing phase. This is already like a pretty detailed, nailed in hand. Like you had bones and tendons and everything.
Oh yeah. Oh no, but this is the rough. I would consider this the rough sketch phase now. So, and you know what? I think I ended up using this body for the final drawing. I spent so much time on it, on making it look as good as I could. I didn't need to retrace it for the final drawing. So that is basically the final body. The head I redrew though.
And poor Prison Mike. I think you're really nailing the I'm eating a sandwich of gruel kind of expression here.
Yeah, and he's just scared too, I think. Okay, and that's it for the rough sketch. And now this final video here will be the final drawing of before moving on to the ink. So there's my photo reference, of course. Gonna keep that on screen here. So and I really paid attention here to that, and I did a little bit of the crosshairs lining up the features. I think I might have done a simple abstraction at some point here too to line up the features. Yeah, a bit of the Riley abstraction, which is something I cover in my caricature course. I talk about how to fix the structure of a caricature head that you're working on using the Riley abstraction. It can really help line up the features, especially when you're drawing something in perspective from an angle. And of course, if you're exaggerating the features in a unique way, you want to, or in an extreme way, you want them to sort of line up and still feel symmetrical and solid, like they belong on a real human skull, even if it is distorted or exaggerated. Here I flip the face around to check my proportions. I almost always do a mirror flip, just to see what it looks like. And the jawline, I think, cut in too much on that side. It looked a little unbalanced. So I fixed that and turned it back around. So yeah, I'm a lot happier with this likeness now. And I played up the fear aspect a little more in his eyes. I changed his facial expression, I think, from what was in the original, where he looks sort of angry and intense. I just kind of raised the eyebrows up in the middle a little bit more, near the bridge of the nose, and that gives him more of an expression of fear. Of course, I had some pictures of rats to work from. I'm not that great at animal anatomy, at least not intuitively, so I used some reference materials on that. There's the gruel sandwich with one bite out of it. And then, of course, I had to put a skull in there because it's a prison cell.
Of course.
And I used the Proko skull for that. I didn't. Yeah, it's right here actually on my little on my tripod.
Look at that.
Okay, and the Dementor I was saving to last because I thought that was gonna be the most fun, doing the flowing robes. And I looked at my hands again to get the hand pose right on the Dementor. I often just take a picture with my own cell phone because it's just right here at hand, and I can just look at the cell phone screen if I need a quick hand reference. Yeah, so that's basically it here. I think I did a little bit more refinement. I ended up redesigning the robes on the Dementor a little bit here, just cleaning them up a bit because they didn't quite make logical sense. It was just a lot of crazy cross-hatching. And yeah, I just wanted to clean it up, and that brings us to the end of the final sketch phase. So yeah, it's basically ready to ink.
Okay, I do like you got like a nice the billowy overlap from each arm in there is good. And this was all from invention for this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and you know, having flowing robes helps a lot cover up sins of anatomy. So
Certainly. Yeah, this is why I do it all the time. Every character I draw is like wrapped in bandages and all of the like connecting parts, because I'm gonna make mistakes.
yeah,
I'll hide them.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so here is my final piece here. All right, and the brushes I'm going to be using today are actually pretty much all Kyle Webster's various brushes. He just, of course, has amazing Photoshop brushes. And I have a couple ink brushes and a few watercolor brushes. And I'll talk about them as I go, I guess. But, you know, if there's any questions about that, you can actually see on my screen what they are. I've just dragged them all into one small palette here of brushes. I've got, I'll just go over them real quick. It's Kyle's Inkbox, your new favorite inker, he calls it. Kyle's Ultimate Inking Thick and Thin. And then for the watercolor, the best watercoloring brush I've seen, I think, so far is this one, the Kyle Wet Edge for Sketching is what he calls that one. It has a nice hard edge, it has a very wet look, but it's done as a multiply brush, so you have to be careful using it. You don't want to overlap your brush strokes unless you want to see an overlap in the wet edges.
Yeah.
But then I do have an extra more subtle watercolor brush that's more for blending. It's called Kyle's Paintbox Watercolor Big Round. And that one you can actually do dark tones and light tones. With the first sketching, with the first watercolor brush, you can only darken like you can with the true watercolor. But this watercolor big brush, you can actually do dark and lights, almost like opaquely. And watercolor 1, Kyle's Paintbox Watercolor 1, that's another one. And then there's a few other ones I don't think I'll really use. But I did have the Kyle's FX box, Add Canvas 1. And that's great for adding a canvas texture to a painting. Just add whatever color you want. So yeah, that's what I'm using today. Just I keep it simple, not too many brushes aren't really necessary for something like this. But what I will do here is to start my inking, I'm going to dim down my pencil layer.
Wonderful. So just so you guys here in the chat know, we were kind of waiting to go through that process part, like all of the process videos before we really started asking him questions as he starts working. But if you guys have any questions leave some questions in the chat. Start your question with the letter Q or a big old question, just so I can kind of pick those out a little easier from other conversation you guys might be having amongst yourselves. Also, this will be a VOD. You can watch it afterwards. It'll be available if you really want to. If anybody else asks that in the chat, please let them know for me. It'll probably come up again. You guys would be my heroes if you could do that. So I guess, Court, do you want to say anything else about what your process is going to be right now, or do you want to start taking some questions?
Yeah, I'll just say real quick. I'm going to start with the background. You know, the brick shouldn't take too long. It's a little monotonous. Hopefully, I think I'll get them all done. But I do want to get to the characters because that's going to be a little bit more fun. But I'm going to keep the pen dynamics pretty subtle. I don't want a lot of thin to thick because that's going to draw a lot of attention in the background. For the characters, I'm going to be doing more of a brush pen, thin to thick, more dynamic pen strokes, more line quality. But for the background, I'm going to keep it fairly simple and thin lined. So yeah, I'll go ahead and just start on that. And if we start to get questions, just let me know.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna start off with a real easy one here. We got a question from Sagely1. That's: do you relate more to gnomes or goblins?
Do I do what?
Do you relate more to gnomes or goblins?
Huh. Well, I don't know the difference, but I mean, I don't know. I guess goblins. I don't know. I'll say goblins.
No,
I don't know.
Yeah. As a person who doesn't wear a hat too often, I don't think that I can really level with gnomes because they do seem to always be pictured with hats. So I think we're just diametrically opposed on this one.
Yeah. No, I'm not really a hat guy either. I mean, my head doesn't look great in a hat.
I'm right there with you. I wanted to be a hat guy, just can't do it. All right, so we'll get into some actual art questions now. This is from New Mew Heart. They asked, how do you balance features to get a closer likeness to your model or person you're portraying?
Well, I mean, that's the eternal question about how to caricature in general. It's just how much do you exaggerate to maintain while maintaining a likeness? That's what all caricatures struggle with, and that's really a matter of personal style and choice. There are people who are all over the map with caricature exaggeration. It's you can do just crazy out there, almost like losing all semblance of reality type caricature, and it can still look just like the person. You can do geometric, simple shapes and have it look like the person. I keep things sort of anatomically grounded in my caricatures because that's just what I like. It's what I like to see. And it's also just, I think, what a lot of clients like to have too when you're doing an illustration for a magazine. There are some that definitely do like stylized, wacky, crazy illustrations, but I think the more broad appeal is with realistic stuff, realistic style caricatures that are very grounded in reality. So, I mean, I just thumbnail sketch until I get to the point that I think it like looks like the person. Like likeness is king before it comes before everything else. If it doesn't look like the person, it's it's not a caricature.
Mhm.
So I will sacrifice exaggeration if I feel I'm not getting a good likeness. I'll go back, I'll pull it back a little bit in my thumbnail or my rough sketch so that I make sure it really, really looks like the person.
Okay. Another question from that same person who it sounds like they're just trying to get a real hold on caricature. They were asking, when is it caricature and when is it considered a cartoon art style?
Well, that's the thing. Cartoon art style is an art style, whereas caricature isn't a style. You can do caricature realistically as a painting, like I said, with like abstract shapes. You can do it as a cartoon, meaning heavy, bold black outlines and simple colors. At least that's how I define it. And other people may have slightly different definitions of what cartoon style is. But what I'm doing today is I would think a cartoon style because it reminds me of cartoon just literally means a line drawing. Whereas caricature definitely doesn't have to be done with a line drawing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be like heavy, intense, highly rendered painting. It can be anything. It can be 3D models. Caricature can be any level of realism, just shifted.
Yep. And also generally, some people do say, well, it's a difference between caricaturing and cartooning. That's a slightly different question. And I think cartooning is maybe just it's fun, loose, quick drawings that don't necessarily have a likeness. If there's no likeness or you're not trying to do a particular likeness of an individual, that's more like a cartoon, like Garfield or just whatever you see in the comics.
Mhm.
But you can do political cartoons that have caricatures in them. So caricatures specifically going after a likeness and changing the aspects of that person's likeness, usually for a humorous effect, but sometimes not. Like I said in my caricature course, caricature can mean a lot of different things. Like you can caricature the human physique to be more sexy or big and burly and muscular, like the Incredible Hulk is a caricature of a bodybuilder. But it's not done for humorous purposes. It's just the things that make a bodybuilder look strong and muscular are exaggerated.
Yeah. Okay. See, we had a nice early one. So for some of you guys who are asking questions in the chat, if you repeat your question, you totally can, but we've probably seen it and already stowed it away for asking at an appropriate time. For everyone else, please feel free to ask some questions. Let's see. We've got one here from Suggest Name that's asking, how much time should we draw daily? I think this is going to be a personal one, but for Court, what do you choose to do in this one? How do you feel about this?
As much as you can squeeze in. I mean, life gets in the way. Of course, you have obligations. If you can just do 1 hour a day at the minimum, I think that's, pretty, as long as you're, at a level where you're pretty comfortable with things. Like early on, you definitely need to sketch a lot more in your daily life. If you're going through school still, going through art school, taking a lot of classes. I mean, the art classes themselves are going to be what's causing you to draw a lot. So you might be drawing 4, 6, 8 hours a day in your classes alone. And I think that's good. You've done your deed for the day. Yeah, so if you're just on your own and you've done it, a lot, a little bit older, like myself,
How
it's
dare
as
you?
much as it can, but however much you can squeeze in.
Yeah, I do think it's a balance that's a really personal one. Do it as much as you can. Never do it in an amount that makes your hand or wrist hurt. That's the only thing that I could really say for how much to do is how much not to do. Don't do it to a place where you hurt yourself. And remember to do some stretches. Stand up every once in a while.
Oh, yeah. I take a lot of frequent breaks when I'm drawing. Just my wrist just gets sore. And I have this glove on, but it's not for wrist brace. Of course, it's just to help my hands slide on the screen better. A lot of people ask that. But yeah, if I feel my wrist getting sore, I'll stop, take a break, stretch. And yeah, it's so critical. I think you're a better artist the more relaxed and comfortable you are.
Absolutely.
You don't want to punish yourself.
Yeah, you should give the drawings the space to flow out of your hands. Don't cramp them up. The trick that I found that I do for myself to make sure that I stand up and stretch and everything is I just drink a lot of water. So I both get in my hydration and I'm going to have to get up to go into a different room. So it makes me stand up. So we've got some other here. Oh, I wanted to check. There was a person on Threads who said that it would be 11 p.m. their time, but they were definitely going to be here because the art demands it. J-Buck Draws from Threads, are you here? Or am I going to have to get at you later? Because they said they would be. All right, now that that's out of the way. So we got a question from the Gurch that's, why are some people so difficult to caricature or to capture a likeness of, such as Harrison Ford or beautiful women? I think you've done a Harrison Ford.
Yeah. I have actually a video in the caricature course, a couple, I think, on how to solve difficult faces. One of the techniques I like to use, well, first I'll explain why I think some people are more difficult to draw. The basic principle behind caricature is you're exaggerating how that subject differs from the average. So whatever that art school or art book, average is of the normal proportions, however much your subject differentiates from that, those are the things you make more obvious. I mean, that's it. I just taught you how to do caricature right there. That's like the only principle you really need to know. So I think in my experience, the people that are already closer to that average, which you might consider to be the beautiful people, young Hollywood stars that have very symmetrical faces in proportions that are in line with the standard average, they're going to be more difficult to caricature because you don't have as much to go on. They're more boring. Mm-hmm. Especially features that are, faces that are smoother, that don't have a lot of dimension to them. Like I think Chris Hemsworth, he always strikes me as someone difficult to draw because he's just like sort of a round, smooth face. He's got close together eyes, which is a pretty distinctive feature.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've actually attempted one of him, so I don't know. But when I looked at him, I'm like, what would I do with his face? It's very nondescript.
Yeah,
how I describe his face.
You'd probably have to start pulling it in where you're leaning more into caricaturing, like doing caricature of the body or other characters he's played. If it was just him straight, I think that might be a little bit harder.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? It's kind of funny. I just realized what I said. I said, I don't know if I've actually caricatured Chris Hemsworth. I have actually in person.
What?
I draw caricatures at events for private events. And I was working on a fishing boat that was chartered by this Hollywood actor guy and some other Hollywood people were on there. And this was in 2010, right before Thor came out. And he sat down for me and he said, I said, are you an actor? And he goes, oh, yeah. Have you done anything I would see? And he goes, I'm in this movie coming out called Thor. And I'm like, okay.
He's like, yeah, I just did this cabin movie. It was fine.
I'm like, what Thor? Did you play Thor? And he goes, yeah. Oh, wow. All right. So that was Chris Hemsworth. And I did looking back on it, I took a picture of it because I thought, I'll probably want to see that again one day. That looked like, it didn't look like him. It wasn't very good. But he was hard to draw. I think it was hard to caricature for me, even there at that spot in person. He didn't have any, Thor regalia on, of course.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I think would be hard for a lot of people to resist as people who would get to play Thor in a movie. Some people, like some actors, like they make their characters they play part of their personalities. Some people just don't, and that's probably for the better. Speaking to you doing the live caricature, there's a question here from Brian Vasilik. He's asking, how is this?
Brian, yeah, he's a friend of mine.
Oh, okay. So then he's probably setting you up for something great here. How is this work tablet set up different than your live digital gigs? How do you approach studio caricatures compared to live digital caricatures?
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm using a giant Cintiq here. It's not giant. It's 24-inch. It's not moving anywhere. And for when I'm doing digital live events, where I draw on the tablet live at events, I have a Mobile Studio Pro made by Wacom, and I set that up on a tripod, and it's just a self-contained little tablet. And that's basically it. It's just a smaller setup. I have a little keyboard to my side, like I do here, where I can do like all my keyboard shortcuts, which I think are really critical when you're doing live digital because you can set a lot of functions to the keyboard if you don't have them on screen. Because speed and is super, super important when doing the live stuff. It's because it's all about really a performance is what you're doing for people. You're not really, I mean, it is about the art, but it is more, I think, about entertaining a crowd. So you want to draw it fast. So you have to come up lots of ways to get the job done. I do the caricatures in about 3 minutes in black and white, or about 5 or 6 minutes when I'm doing color, when I'm looking live.
Yeah, the times that I've ever worked live to make art in front of a crowd, I very much agree. You're not doing it to get necessarily like the best render or anything like that. You're finding the parts of the process that are the most engaging visually, and trying to speed through the other ones.
Yeah.
There's a person who had asked me. I can't necessarily find this one right now. So sorry, I'm not having your name attached to this one. But they were actually asking why you chose to lower the opacity of the pencil layer.
Just so it's not distracting when I'm doing the the line art. Just if I take it back up, it gets very visually confusing when I'm looking at it, and I can't tell what I've inked and what I haven't inked.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like putting a sheet of like tracing paper over your original drawing, just so it's dimmed down a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like sometimes you'll see someone choose to make a full drawing in pencil and just erase it softly, or they'll draw in a different color. It really depends on the person and what their process is.
Yeah.
All right.
So
So a person, Mick Nelson, is just saying they're glad to see Court back at Proko. I love your course and your work.
yeah, thanks, Mick. Yeah, Mick used to participate in my live streams a lot when I was doing them on my own YouTube channel. I haven't done them in a couple years. Did them a lot during the pandemic, but life got really busy again, so I kind of had to stop.
That's
So I
fair.
couldn't do it consistently.
If people are looking for what this YouTube channel is of yours, where can they find that at?
Just my name, just Court Jones on YouTube.
Perfect.
So I do have a library of several live streams that I did over the course of a year or two. It's, I don't know, 30 or 40 of them, I think. And I always try to make them like teaching live streams, not just a straight up demo where I, try to teach a lesson or show how I do certain effects like this, where it's a style copy. There's one on color theory. There's one on just, different digital techniques or traditional techniques.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
so go over there, go subscribe. Everyone can benefit from having more art YouTube channels that they subscribe to. It's a nice reminder that if you haven't drawn today, that you should.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got a question from Aria H asking, can you do a caricature of every person, or are there people who just don't have outstanding features? What besides the round face of Chris Hemsworth, what kind of things would you say are limiting factors for caricature?
Like I said, the thing that makes it hard is just doing the subjects that are sort of average looking already. There is also the opposite effect, which is sort of psychological, like psych out that happens. I think if the person is too exaggerated looking already, it can create some overconfidence. And I've noticed this whenever I try to draw Jay Leno over the years. He's so crazy looking already.
Yeah.
Whenever I try to draw him, this is going to be easy. And I always have a hard time really nailing the likeness. I'm like, yeah, I could tell it's Jay Leno, but I really missed it. There's something wrong with the eyes or something. And I just never really spent too much time trying to make it better. I just, every now and then when I try to draw him, I would find that would be the case where I was just struggling a little when I thought it would be easy. And it turned out not to be.
I think that's the same kind of situation for impressionists. They say that a person who's speaking with their natural voice is harder to do an impression of than a person who's doing like a character voice. Like tons of people can do a Mickey, a Goofy, or something like that. But then to just be like, you know what, I'm going to do an impersonation of Chris Pratt. That would be worlds harder because there's no, like, it's something that is so specific to that person. If there's nothing like that's sticking out, it's hard.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good analogy.
I try my best. Actually, no, I should ask, Court, how's your morning going? I didn't ask this question yet.
Real good.
Okay.
I mean, it's been all about doing the live stream, just getting ready for this, I guess, and but it's real nice here today. It's finally like cold and it's raining outside right now. I love the rain. We don't get a lot of it here in San Diego, so I really enjoy it when we get the chance to have a little bit of inclement weather.
Yeah, there's like 20 minutes ago or something, we started getting this like pitter patter on the roof in here, and I could just hear it coming through. We actually were doing a live stream a couple weeks ago, and all the power ended up going out. Ooh. Not because there was a storm, because obviously we haven't had any storms for like a month. But yeah, just went out of nowhere. So here's hoping it doesn't happen again.
Shoot, you know what? I mean, I hate to do this. I just realized there's a window that's wide open and it's raining.
No, go get the thing. I'll talk to him here.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay. So guys, this is where you get to, he can't hear us right now. Say all your compliments in chat. Just let him know all of the things that you want to say about him that he normally wouldn't get to say or get to hear. I think that there are a few other people in here. Maybe you guys ask some questions that are specific. There's not any plans for a new course currently from Court. No advanced caricature. But if it does happen, I promise it'll have a cover that looks like the advanced D&D box. I demand it. Okay. So they were all saying very nice things here in the chat, totally unprompted by me while you were gone.
Oh no.
Yeah, they're all giving you big compliments, saying
Oh.
he has fantastic glasses. He's so handsome.
Oh my. Okay.
They said Court's my
Sure.
hero. Court's my hero from OG1 Kenobi. As I'll bring back the drawing here. So, oh yes, Coco Buzz, dude is so talented. Looks like a mix between Disney and realism and cartoon. It's amazing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So when you said earlier that you were gonna like block in this background and have it not have too much line variation, when you're working with that kind of thing, if you were working traditionally, you would be changing up your tools.
Yeah. I think if I was doing this with pen and ink, I'd be using a really stiff Croquill brush or a dip pen right now. That doesn't have a lot of flexibility in it to keep that more consistent line. But I also do have more springy dip pens that do get good line quality. But for the figures, I would probably switch over to an actual brush, like a sable brush, to get really nice, expressive, thin and thicks. But I'm just going to be replicating that with digital tools right now.
To kind of do that digitally, do you just bounce between different brushes that are stock brushes, or do you have like a modified version of one brush that has a more constrained pressure size?
Yeah, this is the favorite inker, your new favorite inker that I'm using right now, which is a little more, stiff, I guess you might call it, less line variation. And then the ultimate inking thick and thin will have that more wide variety. Yeah. So, and I could probably get more thin and thick from this. I'm just, with heavier pressure, I'm just keeping, maintaining sort of a lighter pressure. But yeah, if I go real heavy, I can do a thicker line with this too. I'm just choosing not to.
Yeah. So we had a question here from OG1 Kenobi asking, which is a very fun name to say. I gotta say, it's very fun to say. What would Court do if he wasn't a caricaturist? He looks like he would be a great attorney.
Oh boy, I have a sister and a brother-in-law who's an attorney, but no, I don't think I could do that.
I don't know. You've got the nice book wall behind you. This has attorney vibes.
Yeah, that's my art bookcase behind me there with all my art books, not my legal books. Yeah, I don't know what I would do. I mean, I've always wanted to do art. I mean, since I was a little kid. I mean, I played around with doing, I did some theater in high school and college, and some people thought I would maybe go into that, but I just kind of did that for fun and to like, just, have a diversion. But yeah, I didn't, I don't think I was really had the chops to be a good actor or anything. But who knows?
Maybe I don't know. I've seen the raw videos for the different videos that you did with Proko. I think you did a great job in there.
Yeah, I enjoy hamming it up a little bit. On one hand, I kind of do like to hear the sound of my voice, but then again, I don't. I kind of cringe when when you're playing the commercial back, and I'm like listening to my voice. Oh God, I can't stand hearing my voice.
I feel this one. I had to listen to my dumb voice right before your voice came in, so I feel this. I think this person's name is just Sum is asking, how viable is freelance illustration as a career in this current market? I think that they're kind of asking, kind of in a space where AI exists.
Well, yeah, that's tough. You could be losing jobs to AI. I mean, I was not too long ago talking with a company about doing some designs for them that they were considering using AI instead of a caricature artist. And they ended up going with me, so that's good. Because I think, while it is really good right now, and it'll probably get better, it's still not, an art director wants to be able to control really what they're getting, for their product, whatever it is. So AI, it's very limited, and I wouldn't say it's limited, but you can't tell, hey, can you just tweak this a little bit here and there? Hey, the eyes are a bit odd here. Can you just change it so that they're a little more happy looking? Or I don't know, I'm giving some examples of like what an art director might say to tweak an illustration. So the human element of being able to control exactly and get that, feedback, that human feedback from person to person, art director and artist, is still really critical, I think, to a lot of people in the industry. Now, I'm not the most busy commercial illustrator. I don't do a lot of stuff compared to some of the people I know, like Jason Seiler, or someone who just does a lot of magazine covers and illustrations. But I haven't really promoted that. I kind of just get whatever comes my way. And I'm always doing weird, random stuff. So I found it's good to be versatile in your art. Have a niche, have a focus like I do with caricature, but it is good to be able to do different things, different styles, um, and work on deadline, of course, is huge.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm probably not the best person to ask because I'm really not a industry insider when it comes to uh, illustration and publishing.
Hmm.
I have the experience that I have with it, and it's kind of limited, I think.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, from the different artists that we've gotten to talk to at recently at Lightbox Expo, we got to talk to a lot of people who are like still like working artists in a bunch of different fields. Some have been more impacted than others, but I think if you're in a space where what you do is like a thing for events, like when you do caricatures for companies and everything, if it was just like a walk up to this booth thing and then you get like a caricature spit out that has no, it doesn't really have like a sense of the situation, to know like if you see a person, you can feel an energy from them and decide if what you would do for a caricature would be received well at the
Mhm.
very least. There are a lot of things like that that you just won't get from something like AI, much less
Yeah.
for character design and stuff like that that you
Yeah,
would
and
need.
from what I've seen too, from talking to other artists and my experience with working with people, personality goes a long way in getting good work too. Like if you're easy to work with, if you're agreeable, and you don't have a lot of ego attached to what you're doing, you're like, oh yeah, yeah, sure, I'll make those changes, no problem.
Hmm.
And of course, you're going to be fast and meeting deadlines. That's so important. So even if they are not really considering AI, if they're just considering one artist over another, I mean, you want to have a good reputation. You want to have a good personality that works well with others, and not get too attached to what you're doing. Don't ever think what you're doing is super great or super precious. Just you're there to get a job done for a client and meet their needs, whatever they may be. It's not about your needs; it's about theirs because they're the one paying you.
Hmm. Absolutely. I guess before jumping back into some questions here, what are the kind of concerns as you're working through something like this with the background that could easily end up being like perceived as like a pattern y? What do you kind of do to mix that up?
Yeah, well, I had the intention of making a more brick pattern on the wall that was more regular, but then the
Mhm.
outside wall here, I wanted to have more irregular. But I didn't want it to not make sense either. It's like they have to be stacked in a certain way. Like bricks have to overlap, stones have to overlap so that the wall doesn't collapse. But I try to mix it up. We had different sizes of stones, and I also looked at my photo reference, which was actually I'll bring this over here. This is one of my main pieces of photo reference. It's
Mm.
just something I found online. And it has the regular patterns of rocks actually. I think it's still regular on the inside wall too, but I think I saw something in Rackham's paintings that made me think of doing some more irregular patterns.
Yeah.
I have one that's actually the Rackham print that I was actually most inspired by when creating this piece. Where is it? I can never recognize it from the thumbnail. Oh, there it is. It's this one here from the Edgar Allan Poe piece, where it's actually someone being bricked up in a little
Into the
tomb
wall.
here.
Yeah.
So there's different sized bricks, and there's decay on them, and there's the mortars spilling out, and there's moss and mold, and there's even a skull down there. I actually didn't even notice that until after I put my skull in. But this is the one I was sort of looking at as far as, okay, look, I just love the quality of the lines, like how loose and free this line work is.
Hmm.
So I'm intentionally doing sort of squiggly, imperfect lines. Like I don't want to have a ruler out and do perfect lines for these bricks. I want it to look very organic, very natural, very decayed.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's interesting. And the rock texture, like the biggest bricks on that left side of it,
mhm.
there's parts where there's clearly like some overlap lines where he super duper wasn't being precious about the lines.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
and
going
it
like,
works from a distance. You just don't get too caught up in what you're doing. In fact, I probably even shouldn't be zoomed in so much. I was thinking about that. I was like, maybe I should work on this a little bit more zoomed out so I don't get too involved in making each line too perfect. But
yeah,
then I thought for the live stream, it's gonna be harder for people to see what I'm doing if it's too small. But if I was doing this on
yeah,
my own, I would try to keep the image as small as possible on the screen while I'm working.
yeah. It's a hard balance to strike.
Yeah. But I'm letting my hand, just quiver and waver a little bit, making these lines, making them sort of squiggly, natural looking. And
Yeah,
I'm adding a little bit of, just I don't know what you call it, just nicks in the rock, or some simple cross hatching at the bottom to show sort of the turning of the form at the bottom of the stone.
Mm-hmm.
But not too much. Like I said, most of the heavy lifting is going to be done, I think, by the watercoloring. It's going to solve a lot of this. If anything's like vague or looks too simplistic in this ink stage, the watercolors are going to add a lot to this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's do some rapid fire questions for a little bit of catch up here. So we got a question from Walter Francisco. That was him saying, "Wow, when you talked about all your books, all your legal books behind you, what are your favorite art books?"
Good question. Probably my favorite all-time book. Like if there was like a fire and I had to run out and could only take one book with me, it'd probably be Richard Schmid's Alla Prima 2. He made 2 versions of the book, an Alla Prima 1 and Alla Prima 2. Alla Prima 2 just has more updates and stuff, so that's the book I would take. It's one of the best books on art in general that I've ever read. Harley Brown's book too is amazing. I think it's called Essential Truths for Every Artist by Harley Brown. That book's a lot more friendly to read, a lot shorter. Not as much text, but it's just packed with great information. He's a pastel artist, but his artwork can be, his words can be translated to any medium. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Even digital.
Okay. If there was one that you know that the fire is at a distance from you, you are safe. The fire people will get there with plenty of time. Which art book do you just chuck into the fire? You're like, I don't need this anymore.
I don't know, some of the anatomy books, I guess, because I never really look at them. No, I'm just kidding. No, all my books are curated books. I mean, I just like love every one, even though I don't like really look at them anymore. But yeah, I can't really think of a book that I don't like that I have. I mean, why would I want to give advice on a book that you shouldn't get?
Yeah.
No, it might speak to someone else.
I was hoping there'd be some friend of yours or something who's got a book out that you're like, nah, I'll just go ahead and chuck that one into the fire. That's okay there.
Yeah. I've kept all of my friends' books who've given me books, I think.
Yeah. All of their books can go clean into the fire. Let's see some more rapid fire questions. How much art do you do for fun, not for jobs or paid projects? And is most of your free time art also caricatures?
Yeah. Not a lot of free style, free artwork that I do for myself. Whenever I do something for myself, it's almost always plein air painting out in the landscape. I lead a little group here in San Diego every, I don't always get to go myself, but I do organize it. And we have different members choose locations every week. Just go out painting the landscape, usually along the coast. And that's just great exercise to do because landscape plein air painting on the scene teaches you so much about art in general that you can apply to different things. It teaches you economy of brush stroke. It teaches you how to create and modify compositions on the fly to make something better than what you're seeing in person. And the light's changing, so of course, you just have to work fast. Plein air painting is probably the one thing I do most when I have free time. Other than that, I will just do like a caricature for fun, like either sketching or just do a digital paint sketch, like a quick sketch digital paint job for someone. Not for someone, I mean of someone.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think this is a good one.
Okay, I think the background's all done now. Maybe a little bit of details for the floor, and then I'm going to be moving on to the figures or the props.
Wonderful. Yeah, we're about half an hour in, so that's perfect for this spot that we're in right now. Let's see. We had another question. Some person they do, that is the name that they have. I'm not just forgetting their name. I was asking, are you very tempted to make fun of anyone that you draw?
Yeah, I mean with caricature, that's kind of the point. Not always. I mean, a lot of people do think caricature is just for ridicule, just to make people look bad, and I hear that all the time. Like, no, it's really not. I mean, it's for humor, the way I do it. Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily translate as looking bad or making fun of the person or ridiculing them in any way. It's just, if you're going to stretch and pull shapes, it's going to come out funny. If you give someone a big head, it's going to look funny. Maybe not laugh out loud funny, but it'll give you a chuckle at that's all I can really hope for when doing a caricature of someone is just, if they smile and chuckle at it a little bit, that's good enough for me. Okay. Because it's for entertainment purposes, the way I do it. It's just, yeah.
No, I think it's fair. Yeah, like it's definitely something that it is, like you said, inherently going to have some giggles to it.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a time where you're doing something for a professional job and some person comes up and they're just kind of a butthole when they introduce themselves or come up and talk to you, and so you take it out on them a little bit extra in the caricature?
Yeah, you know, if someone's really like rude and insistent, like at an event, you know, either they're cutting the line. Oh, I'm here with my friend. Oh, can you draw me next to her, even though they weren't waiting in line? Or they just are kind of snarky or something in a way that I find unpleasant. Yeah, I sometimes do try to push it a little bit. And I mean, I can hold back if someone has sort of an odd face, and I try to do them a favor if I like them, or if I have no feeling about them, I'll draw what I see, but not, you know, I won't go out of my way to make it crazy looking. But yeah, if someone does make me mad or kind of just think, oh, that was not cool of you to say something like that. Yeah. So watch out, watch what you say around a caricature artist if you're going to get drawn.
Yeah, watch out. There was a time, so I'd operate cameras and things, and so I was shooting a little comedic short film for a friend, and he had made the last 2 days of shooting that thing very complicated, like way overcomplicated. And so he had to do this thing where he would roll down a hill, like a really dusty, like sand dune. And so we already got the take, and I had him do just one extra time at it, just to get, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Usually, you know, we would have been good with the takes that we had, but it's fine. Maybe we would get something good out of it too, you know?
Yeah.
We have a question here from a person who's asking a lot of good questions. A lot of them are a little more in depth, so they might come up during the actual caricature of Prison Mike. But Cocoa Buds Crossing was asking, do you ever use Procreate? What brushes do you recommend using for this art style on there? Do you use Procreate?
I played with a bit. I actually had to learn a bit about it when I made my own personal brush set that I sell on the Proko website and on my own website. A lot of people were asking to make not just a Photoshop version, but a Procreate version. So yeah, I brought my brushes into Procreate, optimized them for Procreate. Nice. So I recommend the Kojo brushes, the Court Jones brushes.
Ooh,
if you want to paint like me. I mean, you know, they're very specific to what I do. They're not like, it's not a huge wide range of like crazy brushes. There's only like 15 or 16 brushes, but they're the brushes that I use most when I do my own personal paintings. Other than that, I don't really know a lot of brushes in Procreate. Some of the stock ones that are in there, I know are awesome, just right out of the box. You just don't have to do a lot to them to make them look good. But it's not been a while. It's been a while since I worked in Procreate, so I can't really recommend anything.
I've been trying to brush up on Procreate. That was not an intended pun for brush talk.
Really good.
I swear. But yeah, I've been trying to use Procreate a little bit more as we get closer to Procreate Dreams coming out. Since you can use all of the same brushes that you can normally use, even the most intensive textured like oil brushes or anything. I just wanted to get myself back and familiar with it. And I don't know, I just really love there's just two brushes in there. There's the technical pen for inking, and depending on your pressure curve, you can get a ton out of that. It'll be like just like a nib, it's kind of like a Zebra G nib, which is my personal favorite of all the dip pens. And then I just use the peppermint pencil.
Oh,
personally, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I dropped a link in the chat here for all of you guys who might want to get quartz brushes. Those will also be 20% off right now because we're brought here today because of a Black Friday sale. Everything is 20% off with the code BLACK20 over on Proko.com. That's going to be all the courses, like Court Jones's course on Caricature, and then all of the tools like quartz brushes on Proko.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let's see. At this stage, when you're working on something, do you have to restrain yourself from making any big changes, or do you just kind of go straight ahead and it works out perfectly?
Yeah, I put all my effort and all the care really into the pencil stage, the final pencil drawing. So, you know, I'm looking at my photo reference a lot if I'm taking photo reference, but when I'm doing the inking, I pretty much don't look at my photo reference at all. I'm just relying on what I've already drawn and just trying to focus on line quality now. And then when I get to the watercolors, I'll be focusing on that. But yeah, the point of breaking it up into stages like this is to focus on a very limited thing at a certain time. So I'm not thinking about all these other things. Like I've already got the skull shape design, so now I just want to make it look like a cool skull.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think getting it out of the way in the beginning, getting out of your own way where you don't have to invent everything as you go is a really big part of growing as an artist.
Yeah.
That's like that the kind of person in the beginning of drawing where they don't want to do a sketch because it's kind of like drawing the thing twice. But in actual reality, the thing that you're doing is making it so you don't have to draw it a million times. You draw it once so that you don't have to spend the whole time reinventing along the way.
Yeah, exactly. You do it carefully. You do it right the first time so that you don't find yourself spending time, doing all these corrections, which is going to take more time in the long run in the end.
Absolutely. We had a question from Inukugi Momochi. They're asking, you mentioned doing art for Tally Hall. What was it like doing art for an album based on music? Is it different to other types of illustration work based on more grounded works like The Office?
Well, I had a lot of, they kind of told me the general principle of what they wanted to include in the composition, but it was up to me to figure it out, like how that would work. So yeah, I listened to the music constantly, and I also got a lot of photo references from the place that it was based on. Like the name of the album is called Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum, and that's a real place. Like it's an oddity museum of like pinball machines and arcade games and coin-operated robots and automatons. That was in Michigan. I think it's closed down now, but it was a place where the band members like grew up and like went to when they were kids. So it was very special to them. So there's a lot of pictures of these oddities and automatons that I included on the cover. So that was a huge help to have all that photo reference, because it was kind of like, it's like a Sgt. Pepper album cover. It was just tons of stuff in it, just lots and lots of things. And the band was sort of lined up at the bottom, just like in Sgt. Pepper. And that's one of the feelings they said they wanted to evoke too, was Sgt. Pepper, because they sound a lot like the Beatles when you listen to them, actually.
Okay. Yeah. This makes sense.
Yeah.
I think knowing the work that you're trying to live in the same space as is definitely an important part of doing client work.
Yeah. And if you're lucky enough to get a music illustration job, yeah, listen to the music. If you're doing a caricature of the Rolling Stones, listen to the Rolling Stones. It'll get you in the mood. And of course, watch videos if there are videos of people to see how they move. If that's something you could maybe include in your piece, Mick Jagger has a certain, of course, stance and a walk. And if you don't know anything about the Rolling Stones, you're gonna want to, do your research basically. So yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
If you just did like a caricature of the Rolling Stones and it's just them sitting there in like this very restrained kind of like group pose thing, it would not be true to that group.
Yep.
You want to get the real like rooster walk in there.
Yeah, because you want to like caricature the feeling too of the movie or the music, whatever it is you're listening to, or whatever the job is. Because it can affect your actual art style. Like if you're like, I did a movie poster, a caricature version of the Matrix movie poster. So I wanted to make sure it looked like the Matrix movie poster. It had the same color palette and the same mood. So of course I was familiar with the movies already, but the movie poster was the main inspiration source because I was basically copying it just in caricature form. Yeah, just the more familiar are with the subject, just swim in it, immerse yourself in it, and you'll find new sources of inspiration in that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially when caricature or portraiting the subject.
This looks like a Rika Go Hill. I hope I am saying that right. They were asking for both of you, how did you get into this career, being an artist? How did that start for you, Court?
Well, right after college, I majored in art at a San Diego University.
You chose not to be a lawyer.
Exactly. I don't think they would have accepted me anyway. Did not have the grades. No. I got grades good enough to get into the UC school, I guess, though. But yeah, I was looking for any art job, and I found an ad in the paper, because you searched in the paper in those days for jobs, because it was before the internet was actually really big. Dating myself a little bit. A local theme park was hiring artists, and I didn't even know what kind of art it was. It could have been portraits, could have been caricatures. I thought it might be. It turned out to be caricature. And they said they provide training and all that. But I got 1 day of training in caricature, and then was kind of forced to go into the park and start drawing the clientele. But that was the first official art job that I was getting paid regularly for. So I just kind of just sought out something and took a chance on it. And that led to a lot of other things, like at the at that job working at SeaWorld doing caricatures, I noticed a lot of other people had really good drawings in their sketchbooks of like life drawing, figure drawing, and other things. And where did you learn to draw like that? It's so good. And they said, oh, it's a local art school called the Watts Atelier.
Oh,
And I'm like, Watts Atelier? I'd never heard of it. And of course, it was run by a guy named Jeff Watts. And I started taking classes there in 2001. And that's when I actually got a real good education in art finally. Like at college, they didn't really teach me how to draw or paint. It was just more about feelings and thoughts and modernism and stuff. So at the Watts Atelier, they actually demonstrated how to draw and how to paint, like hands-on. Oh, no, you're doing this wrong. Here, let me show you. And it's just, you have to leave your ego at the door if you want to get better. So it was really refreshing to have a real art education there. And of course, that's where I met Stan, and where he was a student there and ended up teaching himself, of course. And I taught there, of course, myself for about 10 years.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, I was a student there for about 2 years, just taking classes on my own. When Jeff Watts asked me, because I did caricatures in theme parks, he said, hey, do you think you can do like this one lesson on caricatures for my class? They did a features and facial expressions class, and on the last day of the semester, he always liked to do caricature himself, but he knew I was like specializing in it. So I sat in and did a quick lesson on caricature for the class, and he liked what I did and what I said, I guess. So he said, hey, would you like to teach your own course here in caricature next year? Just create your own course from scratch. I'm like, yeah.
Yes, I would.
Yeah. And that led to other things. I taught a lot of other classes at the Atelier, a few other classes. But caricature was my main thing there. And so that was a really great experience. I was, just if I hadn't worked at SeaWorld and learned about the Atelier, I would never have gotten more into illustration and fine art, wouldn't have improved my skills so much. So it's really, getting involved in the art world, just being around artists, working around artists however you can really lead to things. And you never know where it's going to lead. When I started getting into caricatures more too, I joined an International Society of Caricature Artists where we have a convention every year. And I met a lot of people there who like gave me a lot of opportunities, like other artists, agents, artists from around the world who, like some of the artists I met there ended up bringing me overseas to teach at their places of business. Like they had caricature stands in Japan or one in Korea. And I got to go to Japan and Korea on these different trips to like teach caricature. So just weird opportunities like that was just all started from drawing caricatures in the theme park, which, you don't think that's necessarily going to be a dream job or where you want to end up. But, you don't need to end up where you start, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. I think it's a thing that a lot of people miss. They keep waiting for the perfect opportunity in something, but oftentimes opportunities just string together. One thing comes from another. It's like, say yes to some things.
Yeah.
You don't say yes to everything. That's a bad way to live.
Yeah. Say yes to the things that excite you or that you think could be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's for me, it's very much the same kind of thing. I just drew when I was younger, went to school for a little bit, and then while in art school, I got to do a bunch of other things in extracurricular courses that just ended up springing me into being more of a like video, motion graphics kind of person. And so that's the main kind of thing that I do in my downtime now.
Thanks. In case you guys didn't notice, I switched to a new pen now. I'm using Kyle's Ultimate Thick and Thin inker to do the main figures here, the Dementor and Prison Mike.
This is so you can have that thicker thing to separate it from the background?
Yeah. So it's definitely a thicker line to make it feel like it's popping out a little bit more. And also I do have smoothing turned on about 10% on my brushstrokes just to keep them a little more less jittery, basically. A little bit of jitter is okay. I'm not going to make it super smooth because I do want the lines to still feel organic and natural. But something like this, especially with the robes, I want them to feel like flowing with nice line quality, thin to thick. And this is actually where my theme park training, where I'm worked with a lot of ink markers, really helps with inking because I'm used to doing this thin to thick line. It seems very natural to me. How to pull a stroke from thin to thick and back to thin again.
A tapered line is really important. A lot of times people don't necessarily lean into doing a tapered stroke in the beginning of them drawing. And so things end up looking more rigid as a product of it.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of stroke that you do sells the motion that you're looking for in that actual line. There's one question here. Person who really wants you to answer their question. It's Balrog Berserker. They're asking repeatedly, how much time did it take you to improve your artwork? I think you answered a little bit of that in there, but do you have a hard and fast answer for them?
I mean, I've been doing this kind of professionally for 25, almost 30 years, and I'm always still working on it. It never ends. I mean, the improving and the hopefully never ends. Um, and yeah, I mean, but I would say, I mean, I know that's not a great answer for a lot of people if they're just starting out. But I would say at least a good 5 to 10 years of working constantly, of really working on your stuff, working in school, um, is really necessary
Mhm.
to sort of get to a professional level. I mean, it's different for everybody. I mean, there's no one single answer, of course. It depends on what you're trying to do. How much, is it very highly academic, what you're trying to do? Is it more impressionistic and loose, or do you want to be a character designer? Because depending on what you want to do, there's a lot of additional supplemental skills you'll need to be good at something. Like if you want to be a concept designer for movies or video games, you have to know a lot of things about architecture and machinery and perspective and anatomy. And so that person's career is going to require a lot more education and experience than someone who's just doing a really narrow focused thing. Like if you're just an illustrator who does a real particular type of thing, working freelance just for yourself, and people come to you for that style and you just do that one type of thing, it's not going to be, you can probably do that a little more quickly. You don't necessarily need as much experience or schooling to really do your own thing. But if you want to work for people, work for clients under a lot of different circumstances and doing different subject matter, where it's different all the time, changing from day to day, you have to be super, super well versed and knowledgeable in different areas. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And like you said, it's going to be a different speed for every single person. That doesn't mean that one person is better than the other, just different journey. If you have some friend who's doing art as like at the same time as you trying to get better at art, like if they just like seem to zoom past you, that doesn't necessarily mean that you guys have the same like end amount of skill that you will have. Like you can still surpass this person later. It might take you a little bit longer. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Zan was asking, hi Court, I'm still in the early stages of developing my art skills. Is it better to focus on one's attention into one niche of art, or is it better to learn everything you can early on?
Ooh. Well,
there's a couple different ways.
Yeah, there's different ways. My personal opinion and like the course I took, the path I took, I should say, was getting a lot of experience in different areas because you don't know what you're really going to fall in love with. You may go into art school or classes thinking you'll want to do one thing, and then it changes because you get exposed to different things. Like I didn't know I'd be really into pen and inking until I started taking some classes in it. And I don't really do a lot of it in my career. I'm not really focused on pen and ink, but I do love it. I love getting to work in this style whenever I get a chance to, but I love oil painting too. And I love digital painting. When I do my digital paintings, I like to make them look like an oil painting because that's just the area that I'm more experienced in, is getting that look. So yeah, so the more stuff you expose yourself to when you're younger, I think you'll have better success because you won't necessarily know yet because you're not a mature artist yet. You haven't had a lot of experience trying out different things, and you never know what's going to stick until you really play around with it and take some time learning something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, explore. There's nothing bad about that at all. Like if you're focusing on learning one particular aspect of art, it can be really good to like drill into that thing. Like you spend a couple months really like trying to nail down your anatomy, but it doesn't have to be a thing that is all that you do. It's okay to mix it up. I think it's just about intentional study.
Yeah. Follow the things that that excite you, but you got to sometimes just button down and learn the things that you think you need to, even if you don't want to, like anatomy and perspective, the color theory. That stuff is going to be so invaluable, even if it is sometimes kind of dry or it's just a lot of book learning.
Mm-hmm.
It can be so important later on because you got to build up your fundamental skills in these different areas because you fall back on your fundamentals all the time when you find yourself in a difficult spot in your career or when you're doing work with somebody. If you have a wider range of experience to fall back on, like you've done landscape painting or interior painting, that's going to help you a lot in some jobs. Whereas other people, it might really trip up and they'll be like sort of lost and struggling on certain assignments or for certain clients, and you'll be really limited in what you can do if you don't have this wider experience from your background. So yeah, do as much as you can when you're starting out, when you're learning. For sure, you'll be better off.
Mm-hmm. Here. Michael was asking much earlier in this stream, not prison Mike, chat Mike. Would you say likeness is achieved by having correct proportions between the features themselves, or more so by having the correct proportion and ratios within the features?
The second one. When you're doing caricature, proportions, you don't follow what's there anymore. You have to think more about proportional relationships to things. So how the eyes relate to the nose and how that relates to the mouth, how those relate to the ears, how those relate to the chin. And you're exaggerating the relationships between the features when you're doing caricatures and getting a likeness. So yeah, it's all about the relationships and not so much the proportions.
Mm-hmm. There was a question from another person earlier, Amarin Pickle. I think you actually kind of answered it there, but I'll put it forward just in case. What is the best way to capture likeness? I feel like I struggle with capturing likeness and don't know what to focus on to make it better.
Well, not to plug the course too much, but there are a lot of specific exercises in my course to help improve likeness. It's one of the main things I found that helps when you're struggling and don't quite know what to exaggerate and how to capture the likeness is to make a caricature, make a list, make a checklist of the distinctive features of the person you're drawing. Like get verbal, make it intellectual. Don't just rely on your visual response to something. I mean, it starts visually, but write down a list. Like, okay, let's really look now at this subject. Do they have a tall, thin head? Do they have a short, wide head? Short, wide head. Okay, compared to the average. Okay, how are the eyes? Let's see. The eyes, are they closer together than the average or farther apart? About average. Okay. Are they bigger or smaller? Oh, they're actually smaller than the average, at least with that expression. Okay, so you make this list. You go down all the features, and it's like you're doing a thumbnail sketch, but out of the written word, not out of out of shapes. And so then you can do a sketch directly from your notes, like draw the caricature with those things in mind that you just wrote that list for. And it really helps organize your thoughts. It really helps you get some clarity when looking at the subject might otherwise be kind of confusing. So that's one of the best exercises. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't think that's one that I've ever heard actually talked about in this. That's really good.
Yeah.
There's so many questions in here. I've been saving a lot of the caricature specific ones for when you're more in actual Mike's face here. But let's dive into them a little bit. Okay. Cocobud Crossing with another good one here. There's asking, are there specific line techniques used for the caricature art style? How do you decide where to add emphasis on lines and where to keep them extremely thin?
Well, I went over it a little bit here today when I'm talking about it. It's mostly one of the fundamental things I like to think about is what's in the background, what's in the foreground, or where do you want to draw the viewer's eye to. So the subject that I'm more interested in making the viewer focus on are the Dementor and Prison Mike here. So these are going to be thicker lines. Also, just from a technical point of view, when one line or shape overlaps another one, you generally want the overlapping line, the one in front that's closer to the viewer, to be a thicker line than the one that's behind it. Sometimes on the bottom side of a form, like on the as opposed to the top, you'll have a darker, thicker line because if you often think about light hitting the subject from above and more shadow on the bottom, there's going to be a thicker line on the bottom. Helps show the idea of there being maybe a shadow underneath the form. Like on the skull over here, I put thicker lines. Well, I did some cross hatching a little bit, but I definitely made this line on the back of the little skull here thicker than the ones on the top because I wanted it to show that it's on the bottom and receiving more shadow. And that's these are things that I sort of do unconsciously at this point, but that's what I'm originally was thinking, and that's what the thought process is behind it, I think.
Yeah. It's kind of like the opposite of the idea of when you make a lost edge on the side of something that has a bright light shining onto it.
Yeah.
The flip side of that.
Okay, I think it's time to ink Mike.
It's happening. It's happening. Now, are you gonna be zoomed in on this one, or do you think you'll still be doing it from this kind of distance?
Well, kind of for my own sake, I don't want to zoom in too much. But for the sake of people viewing it, if they're viewing it on a smaller screen, I guess I will enlarge it a little bit. But I find if I zoom in too much, it hinders me a little bit, or I get too precious with the lines.
Yeah, because then it becomes the full drawing rather than a piece of it.
Yeah. And I kind of want to keep in tune with the whole picture, like all the other lines around it, how thick those are, how thin they are, and how this relates to it is very important in the big picture. So being able to see the whole picture while you're drawing is kind of important to that.
Mhm. We have a question from Connie M that's asking, how much does being able to draw a face realistically help with being able to draw caricature?
Well, it depends on your style of caricature. For me, I caricature in a style that I think is more realistic, more anatomically correct caricatures. So very important. My training with drawing portraits, studying anatomy, super super important. But if you're a person who does like these crazy, wacky exaggerations, maybe the more cartoony, it's not that important. In fact, it might even be a hindrance.
Mhm.
Like I have a couple caricature friends who are really popular on TikTok. I think they're called Caricature Party on TikTok and Instagram, and they're in Hawaii. It's this husband and wife, Aaron and Sammy, and they're getting really well known, like just by the general public for their caricatures because they're so wacky, and it's not anatomically based at all. It's very, very silly, funny cartoon drawings. And like I'll have people at events that I'm drawing, just a random person at a conference, and say, "Oh, have you seen these people online? This person in Hawaii that does these crazy characters." Like, yeah, I know them. They're buddies of mine. And they're really getting a name for themselves doing that, and the people come to them now to get just skewered and roasted by these kids because they're so funny. And then when you come to expect it, when you get known for that, that's a great place to be. So what they did is they really took a chance. They took a chance on the style of art and style of caricature that they loved to do, that they felt most passionate about,
Mhm.
and they made a living doing that. Whereas a lot of other artists, might retreat to the safer space of doing lesser exaggerations. Like,
Mhm.
honestly, myself, I'm not a huge exaggerator, but I'm going for a different clientele and a different purpose. I do a lot of corporate clients at trade shows and stuff, and in my experience, they do tend to like a little more tame or timid caricatures, and
Mm.
that's fine with me because that does actually suit my instincts or what I like to do when I'm doing caricatures, at least live anyway. It's more just about speed and entertainment.
Yeah.
But I really admire artists who follow their hearts and do exactly the type of artwork they like, especially live, because that's a lot of pressure in a situation, drawing someone live in front of them and making it really crazy and out there.
Mhm. I think that actually kind of speaks to a question that we got during you talking about this from Ped Fair. They were asking, what is the best way to make your art reach a wider audience? I think you said a little bit of it in there. Do the thing that you feel passionate about. That's the first and foremost, the biggest thing. Don't try to change your work for just a wider audience.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for doing that professionally sometimes, but do something you enjoy and that shows through.
Yeah, because at the very least, I mean, if you get successful at doing something, you don't want to be stuck doing something that really makes you upset or doesn't fulfill you. Like if you do one scientific textbook illustration and it's really good, and you did the job because it paid well and whatever, and you put it on your website, you start to get more of them. And if you really don't like doing scientific textbook illustrations, don't advertise that you do that. Otherwise, you're going to get more of it, and you'll be known as the person that does that. Follow your passion, follow the thing that really excites you.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as everything else, Ped, find your audience. Make it easy to find you. Make sure that all of your handles across all social media are all the same if you can. Make your website that same kind of thing. Do the stuff that you find yourself wanting when you look at the work of someone else online. Don't blow out your posts with hashtags either. That actually ends up being bad.
Yeah.
And then a frequent attendee of these recent live streams, Jim Sketch Testing, says, the course is great. It helped me improve all of my drawing, so it's not just useful for caricature art. It helps me think about and manipulate 3D forms in space. Highly recommended. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Yeah, Jim used to watch a lot of my live streams I did on my own channel.
There's a lot of people watching the YouTube channel over there, apparently. I think we should make sure and plug that thing. It's Court Jones.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it just at Court Jones on YouTube?
Just Court Jones, yeah. The Court Jones channel. Honestly, I don't promote it a lot. I haven't put any new videos on in a long time. So, but there's a lot of older content you can look through for sure.
There you go, guys.
It's only one of my far and away my biggest, most popular video that's gotten the most views is not even on caricature or art. Really, it's how to do a gold realistic gold painted finish on a sculpture, on how to make something look like shiny gold, because it was just something I wanted to do with my I always wanted a Indiana Jones fertility idol, from the movie. So I bought one online, and it was all white resin, and I just painted it gold, and I just recorded the process and made it like sort of a gold painting demo, and it's so popular. I mean, that's like most of my ad revenue comes from that more than anything else. It's kind of
How
funny.
interesting. Yeah, no, it's far and away. It's a much higher count. Huh. Personally, I like this the one you've got here of Dr. Venture.
Oh yeah, the realistic venture painting. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Cuz that would be a fun one to get to do. Cuz like everything from Venture Bros is such a like a specific kind of shape.
Mhm.
Chrome Colossus saying, I thought using a mess of hashtags was a good idea. No. If you use a lot, then you are doing too many. You stop saying, come find me because of this one thing. You're saying, come find me for these 50 things. And then you're not actually saying where to come find you. It ends up being bad. Try to limit it if you can. Okay, let's see some more questions. Actually, I should ask, is there anything that you want to talk about with the process that you're in currently?
No, it's just kind of filling in the, not really filling in, but yeah, just inking, just trying to be true to what's there. I'm not going to do all the cross hatching that you see here. I did a lot of pencil cross hatching, but Rackham did not do a lot of cross hatching, especially on faces. He let the watercolors do the job. So I'm just going to do some of the main key lines for the features here. And the pencil lines will be there just more for reference for my shading for the watercolors. So I'm trying to be really restrained right now with the inking I'm doing.
Do you find yourself trying to live in the space of cartooning with some of the expected iconography? Like you've got you've got larger pupils in there. And is like, I don't know if that's you trying to balance like that fear kind of element, or if you're just saying that he's in a really dark room.
No, it's not technical in that sense. Like pupils are dilating because he's in a dark room. And it was just how I inked it. I mean, I didn't really, I just tried to stick to what was the pencil job did, but I guess I probably should actually make the pupils smaller if he's in a state of fear, because I think technically your pupils kind of constrict when they're seeing something fearful.
Yeah. It's like there's sometimes where I think people end up like they're drawing something and they're unintentionally participating in like a certain kind of iconography for illustration. Like if someone say unintentionally was adding wrinkles underneath of the eyes and they're overplaying those kind of things, that means something in cartooning and in simplified illustration.
Yeah, in cartooning, when you're working with real limited lines, every line counts. So if you end up doing excessive line work or cross hatching in an area, you might do something like age of the subject when you didn't mean to, because you're making more lines, more wrinkles. Every line has much more impact because of the fact that you're using so few lines. But if you're going to be doing it with paint later on too, you'll have the chance to do those features. You'll be able to do those plane changes or whatever it is you're doing, but just with a more subtle medium like paint or watercolor. So moving into the home stretch here, working on the body. If I was trying to be a little bit more dramatic, I guess I would have done the face absolutely last. Save that for the big reveal, but oh well.
Nah, it's okay. I mean, they've already seen the pencils.
Yeah. I want to make it look like he's sitting on the ground, so it's a little more flat butt, as it meets the ground.
Is he in like just a one stretch kind of garb?
Yeah, it's sort of like, I just imagine him in sort of not like a prison gown of some sort, because it's it's like Azkaban, so it's gonna look like 19th century prison garb, I guess.
Yeah,
just to seem more appropriate than putting him in like a jumpsuit or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even if you were doing something like in the vein of like, I don't know, like the prison jumpers from like Oh Brother Where Art Thou with the stripes, that still wouldn't be throwing it back quite far enough.
Yeah, it need to look a little more antique than that.
Okay. And so for you adding the wrinkles into the clothing here, is there anything that you really try to keep in mind when you're applying wrinkles to clothing?
Well, if I was doing just an ink drawing here, I would be doing a lot more indications of these wrinkles. You can see them with the pencil lines. I've got more indications of wrinkles, but I'm really trying hard to keep it simplified like Rackham did, to just a few lines here and there, and I'll be doing a little bit more with the watercolors.
Mhm.
But you know, just following certain rules of drapery as far as how fabric stretches and constricts, bunches up. This is mostly invented, so it's probably not super accurate. Uh, I did, you know, I did pose for myself in this position, but I didn't wear like a gown, so I didn't have the
Mhm.
clothing wrinkles to really go off of.
Yeah.
Just I was using it for the hands and the feet more than anything.
Yeah, because it would be such a pain, to get into your nightgown just for one picture.
Exactly.
So we got one person here, Mason W, who said just signed up for your caricature course. Thank you, Court, Proko, and Black Friday deal.
Oh yeah, thank you, Mason.
Yeah, thank you, Mason.
And you know, I think when I look at this when it's finished, I'm gonna see that, you know what, my inking doesn't really look like Arthur Rackham. You know, he just had a certain way he pulled his strokes, a little more whimsical than what I'm doing. I'm just sort of a creature of my own, or a not a creature, a victim of my own style and the way I hold a pen, the way I move a pen. And it's really, really hard to replicate that look. It's kind of like trying to forge someone else's handwriting. It
Yeah.
definitely can be done if you focus on that. And maybe if I stopped and then erased some things and redid them and really looked closely at some of Arthur Rackham's inkings, I could get that distinctive look a little bit better. But you know, I went into this knowing that I wasn't really going to fool anyone, thinking that this was going to be an Arthur Rackham piece. You know, so I'm not really trying to do an exact. Well, it's not even a copy or an exact style copy. It's just, you know, a Court Jones illustration done in the style of Arthur Rackham, or using him as the sort of the visual sort of goal in mind. But it's not so much a style copy in that respect.
Mhm.
But I did want to learn from him what I can. You know, I want to learn from him, from his, you know, just the restraint that he has with when he uses the pen, the way he builds certain forms, the way he does fabrics and drapery, the way he handles subject matter that he wants to fall into the background, like the walls and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll do that. Now maybe I'll take one look at it again after I'm done here, and zoom out and figure out, like, you know, is it ready to move on? Is it really, you know, Rackham-y enough? You know, if I can
Mhm.
use that as an adjective.
Dude, I've been having such a hard time. I keep saying I want to say bend it like Rackham. I've been like holding strong and not doing it.
Oh no.
Okay.
So I'm gonna size the brush down a little bit to do these leg hairs, because leg hairs are just like always funny, no matter what.
Absolutely. And Steve Carell, we know, is a hairy dude
Oh yeah,
from his scenes in The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
yes. And actually, there are some Rackham illustrations of people with hairy legs too. Like I think like some giants that he did from fairy tales had like these exposed bony legs that are all covered in hair, and it's pretty funny.
Mhm.
He definitely had a lot of fun doing his work, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think that his illustrations definitely show that. Like he was enjoying a part. There's probably some part where he like adds some little funny little detail and just giggles at himself and keeps going through it. And that's important to get to do if you're doing work for clients. Find the joy in there.
Mhm.
There was a time that I had to edit a commercial for a rodeo, and I'm not the biggest fan of a rodeo. So like
Mhm.
some parts that are great, some parts not so much. So I had a real good time just loading that commercial up with a bunch of times when the animals were the real ones in control for that commercial. And you got to find the joy in it. There's a question from Voyager asking, "Hi Court, for someone who lives in the middle of nowhere in Africa, working for 8 hours every day, gets back home and draws every day. How can I actually progress in learning art? No schools, no centers."
Wow. Well, I mean, in that case, of course, the internet resources are going to be critical.
Mhm.
Just finding YouTube videos. You know, a lot of my course is actually available on YouTube for free, that you can watch. But if you don't want to get the premium version, there's still a lot of great info in there. And all of other Proko's courses, huge, huge resource. Figure drawing, portrait drawing, drawing basics. So yeah, it's never been a better time to be somewhere else around the world and learning. So yeah, take advantage of what you can online if you have access to that. Because yeah, that's probably the best option if you can't, you know, actually travel to an art school, or be around a community that has a lot of other artists of like mind. You just got to find your community online.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's definitely important. Find some people who post free resources. I do like. I think you're in a good spot right now for this with the Proko YouTube channel. We post a massive amount of our courses for free on YouTube. And there's also Court has his YouTube channel, and right now things are on sale, 20% off for everything. It's been a while since I plugged it, guys. So just let me say it's 20% off pretty much everything on Proko right now with the code Black20. And that'll be courses, tools, reference packs. If you need some sort of reference for certain poses or anything, all of it's 20% off right now until the end of the month. So go get some. And if you guys are interested in learning caricature, Court has a course on that. You should do it. Okay, back into some questions.
And I want to say too, I'm actually come up to the very last bit of inking here. It's the hair, a lot of hair in his hand that he's eating.
I hadn't put together. That's what that was.
Yeah, it's like because when you're in prison, you can eat your own hair. Is what he says. That's so ridiculous. Okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna have some hair hanging out of his mouth, but I thought that'd be too much, or might look weird, or like not really. Like people might look at it and go, "What the heck is going on there?" If they don't know the context. So I'm just keeping it just in his hand here.
Yeah, for a moment I was thinking it was just like a loose bed straw kind of situation. Okay. Oh, Chrome Colossus in the chat. That's so much better. They said render like Rackham.
Render. Oh, nice.
That's so much better. You got there. Thank you so much. Thank you. Whew. Okay. Dan in the chat saying just got the drawing basics course last week with the Black Friday discount. I love it. I've been wanting real drawing training for years and years. It's really a dream being fulfilled. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for keeping me employed. I appreciate it.
Okay, so I just saved, and I know we're getting actually up in time here, so it didn't, we took about an hour and a half, maybe a little over an hour on this, I guess. And I want to get into the coloring now. So this is the part that we're going to make it look antiqued and aged. And I'm going to tell you some of the tricks I do to make it look like that. Some of the Photoshop tools I have at my disposal for that. Now, let's see. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and do the line work thing first. I'm going to just to stay safe, I'm going to make a copy of all three of these different ink layers that everything is on. Just duplicate those, and then I'm going to collapse them into one layer, and then I'm going to turn off those other three layers. I'll just keep these here for safety. I'm just going to, in fact, I'll put them in the line art folder down there. So I just have final ink layer.
It's important to label your layers, guys. Label your layers, label your groups.
Exactly. And what I'm going to do, actually, I'm first going to get the bleeding line look for an aged ink illustration, like we saw in a lot of Rackham's illustrations. So what I'm going to do is just duplicate this ink layer. It's just easier to duplicate if it's on one layer.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that. And the layer that's beneath it is going to be the layer that I'm going to actually play around with here. So I'm going to turn off the top copy of this final ink layer. So now I've just got the one ink layer visible. Just move this right here. And first I'm going to color it. I'm going to color every single line in here just with a really simple step. And what I'm going to do is lock all the transparent pixels on the palette. And then I'm going to choose a color that's going to be my bleeding color. So I like to, since it's going to be on sort of a warm parchment, I'm going to choose like a dark reddish brown. Something there, maybe a little more yellow. There we go. And I'm going to fill this layer with that brownish color. But since all the transparent layers are locked, the transparent pixels are locked, it won't affect anything that's white. It'll only affect pixels that actually have some value to them. And so the quick command to fill is just Alt backspace on the Windows machine. And every single line is now brown. I don't know if you saw the change happen there, but
absolutely
black, brown. So this layer, though, I'm going to unlock it. It's very important to unlock the transparent pixels. You want it to just be a regular layer with no restrictions again. I'm going to now blur this layer. So I'm going to turn the black ink layer actually on so I can get a better sense of what's happening here. And maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. But I'm on this brown line art layer, and then I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to blur just the brownish red layer beneath that. So the lines are basically going to spread out a little bit and soften up if I do it a lot, it's going to look really like diffuse. And I don't want it to be too diffuse. I just want to soften them up and like look like it's on sort of a soft parchment that absorbed the ink and it's spread out just a little bit.
Mhm.
It's kind of a subtle effect. You may not notice it if it's actually looking at it on a small screen, but if I zoom in here, you'll see what happened.
And you'll feel it.
Yeah.
Even with that small amount, you feel it.
And watch, I'll turn the layer off. Original.
Mhm.
There. And then back on. Oh, you know what? I didn't fully erase the ink in the eyes here. I just noticed. Going to the
I was
pupil
kind
here.
of enjoying it a little bit.
Oh, it looks
Yeah,
a little weird. Like Rick and Morty pupils there, just a little bit squiggly. Okay. So anyway, so that's a real simple, quick way to get that bleeding ink stroke.
Mhm.
And let me see, go ahead and I noticed there's actually a couple overlapping lines, right? On the Dementor here, where his robes are. I'm just going to get rid of those real quick. Probably should have done this before I blurred it, but
That's okay.
okay. Yeah, so we are ready to color now.
Now, do you going forward? Do you like collapse these two layers into one? Will you merge them?
You know, I'm not going to, so I have the ability to change it later if I want. After I do the watercoloring, if I want to change it, there'll be, I can still edit it if I need to. So I might actually just go ahead and put them in a group, though, to keep it organized. New group from layers. Ink lines.
And for anyone in the chat who might be thinking it, yes, there's probably also a different way that you would choose to do this. There's 1 million ways to do anything that you're going to do in Photoshop. You could so with this kind of thing, I've also done it with drop shadow with 0 distance, and you color the drop shadow to be the brown. You can do a different process for like filling the layer with the color. Use whichever one works for you. It's okay. The idea is just get that bleed.
Okay, so I'm going to first get a light tone over everything. I just created a new layer beneath my line art layer. And this is really when it's good and helpful to look at like the color range that I'm going for, like in Arthur Rackham's pieces. It's generally sort of a parchment color, this warm yellowish gray color. Some are more gray or yellow than others. And it probably depends on the individual like source you got it from. Like the original may not even look like this. It may just be the way they scanned it or photographed it. But these do have a certain look to them. So that's what I'm going to go as my base. I'm just going to look for that light, warm gray to start off with and just do a simple fill.
So you're choosing to actually make that color for that background rather than using scanned paper texture or anything?
Well, I'll do both actually. It's multi-steps.
Okay.
And I like to control it. I like to just do baby steps here. So I'll start, I think a little more yellow.
We actually we have a whole video with you. That's you talking about how to make digital works look a little bit more traditional.
Oh yeah, yeah, the standalone video on that. Yeah. And that was more for like oil painting, I think, or people that want to do that kind of thick impasto type paint. And this is watercolor, which is a little different. So yeah, there's different strategies for making a watercolor look aged. Yeah, so then there's so many different things you can do to create texture. One of the things I'm going to start with here, though, is where did it go? It's Kyle's FX box. Add canvas. So I'll pick us like a darker color here that stands out a little bit more. And it's hard to see right now, but I'll zoom in to show you. I'm just sort of painting back and forth to create this sort of, it is canvas texture technically, not paper, but it's noise. It's just visual noise that will react with the paint brushes, I think, pretty well. When I do the actual watercoloring. So you can't see much now, but I'm going to zoom in. And you can see the textures there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you, of course, could just drag in an actual photo texture of parchment paper. I have a lot of that. In fact, I'll probably do it, but not till the end. I just kind of want to have a slightly more subdued and controlled surface to paint on first. I don't want to add all my aged effects right now. But even if I don't finish the painting, I will do that before the stream ends.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll get to a point of where it looks pretty finished.
Since we're here at this kind of like transformative moment for this piece, you want to like take a second, take a drink of water, anything like that?
No, yeah, I'll take a drink. That's
do a stretch maybe. I dropped a little message in here in that chat for you, in the Streamlabs chat. If you got a couple monitors.
Yeah. Someone asked if I like why I'm not at the ISCA convention. That's actually going on right now. The annual International Society of Caricature Artists convention. I ended up just getting too busy. I just started full-time work for a video game company doing designs, and they want someone 5 days a week. I'm working from home, but it started last week, and I knew it was coming, so I just didn't plan on going to the ISCA convention. So I'm actually taking a break from that full-time work today to do this, and then I'm going to go back to work on that. And I can't really talk about that project, but it's a shame though. All my friends, I love going to the ISCA convention, more just to see all my caricature friends and people that are there. And it's in Los Angeles right now, so it's really close, but I didn't get a chance to go this year.
Mm-hmm. It's been like the one question that people keep asking the most in chat. Like the other people didn't ask it already. But yeah, it's like, no, it's like we're focusing on the process right now, guys.
Yeah.
Chill.
So I'm gonna start a new layer, and I'm gonna work on the background here. And I've got now the Kyle's wet edge for sketching, and this is a watercolor brush. So I'm just gonna start just scrubbing in some paint here for the rocks, for the stones on the walls, and try to vary my pressure so that the intensity looks a little different, or the color or tone looks a little different. Maybe even do some random stones, or I'll do stones in random order with this color and switch to a different color to just vary it up, because I don't want every brick and stone to look the same. Variation and organic quality is really important here in a subject like this.
It's interesting for so many of the streams that we've done, people will be working on something and zoom in so much. So it's really interesting to see you work at such a bird's eye view level.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, it's what I know. Hopefully it's okay for people to see it, but this is really how I work. This is how I do it. I like to stay back when I'm doing something like this, especially painting a background where I have to kind of keep everything in mind all at once, where I'm keeping all the relative values in the back of my mind. Although I think I could probably cheat it in a little bit because it's not quite full screen. Let's go. There we go. You could also, back off from the screen a little bit. I could back off from the screen and not be so close to it.
I mean, you have a big old Cintiq you're working on, so it's a little harder to back up.
Yeah, that's true. Although the more I back up, I don't actually have to need to use my reading glasses anymore. I can just...
just like you're canceling out the distance.
Yeah, it looks a little more blurry naturally now. I don't need to have to blur it.
No watercolor blur. So have you gotten to see any of the Rackham's pieces in person?
No, I don't think I ever have. Real shame. I mean, I love seeing original pieces in person because you learn so much about really how they look in person. But
absolutely.
I've seen other inkings in person at various shows, like James Montgomery Flagg's pieces and Joseph Clement Cole's and stuff. And they're just, they're beautiful. Like Flagg's inkings are surprisingly large, at least the ones I saw. Like they're like a giant, really big boards. And I thought, okay, that's good to know. I mean, you never really know what size these artists are working until you see them in person. I guess you could read the description if they have it, but
it's different.
Yeah, when you see how big that is, it's like, oh, that figure he drew is like 18 inches tall. No wonder it looks the way it does. If it was like 6 inches tall, it would have come out a lot differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the greatest things I ever got to do was visit this cartooning museum in San Francisco during school, and they had a couple pieces in there that I think there was like the ones that you expect to be able to see, like a piece from Jim Davis or something. I think there was like a Hagar the Horrible strip in there. But then there was also some private collectors, Bill Watterson piece that was in there. And that was incredible to see.
That's the Calvin and Hobbes guy, right? Bill Watterson?
Yeah. Yeah. Getting to see like the part where there's like a pasted in element or where there's whiteout. Not a thing that you see in the final product, but was there in that original process. It makes such a big difference to know, like, oh, they make mistakes too, or see how a technique was applied.
You know what originals that I saw that really I didn't get anything additional from looking at the originals was Drew Struzan's works.
You're like, oh, no, it looks like it came out fully formed.
It is perfect. They are perfect in person. They look exactly, they're super smooth. There's really hard to see any technique. at least the pieces I saw. I mean, I think he did have some pieces where he probably did some impasto gesso layers maybe to create textures, but I don't think I saw any of those. But the ones I was looking at, I'm like, are these originals? These look like prints. I don't see any surface variation or anything that I don't remember seeing from the original print.
I can only imagine, because he's got to be mixing in like a million different materials, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, from what I know, it's mostly airbrush, acrylic paints, and colored pencils mostly, right? Is that?
Yeah, no, yeah. It's just like there's got to be some part where like a different there's some speckle bit that was applied with some odd tool, this.
Yeah,
or
there are definitely
that.
those. Like a toothbrush flick or something where to get some spots and dapples and splatters. But yeah, who knows what he actually did use? But that's a lot of artists use something like that, or stiff bristle brush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got one recently. Rather than doing the toothbrush kind of thing for the whiteout speckles, Ryan Benjamin, he uses like a Vaughn's card.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Paint.
I wouldn't even thought of that at all. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's not a thing I've ever been driven to. Like the necessity is the mother of invention. I've never had to whip out my Vaughn's card for this. We have a question here from Ancient Blades 50. They said that I've been recently trying to get into caricatures, and I've been struggling to create interesting head shapes. Do you have any tips to create good head shapes?
Well, the thumbnail sketching process, of course, is just so important in creating good head shapes. It's that's where you really experiment, because you don't care how it turns out. Just do your worst, basically, and see if you hit on something that might work. There's another way to like trick yourself into creating interesting head shapes that you might not have done otherwise, and that's the spirit animal sketch style or exercise, as I called it, where basically it works only for certain subjects, I think, that really scream to you, like someone who's already sort of crazy looking, like maybe like a Conan O'Brien, or someone who's really has a flamboyant appearance or distinctive features. You think about what animal or even an object they might look like, or that what object comes to mind. Like one of the subjects I did was Clint Eastwood, but I based his likeness off of a gun, like an old revolver, because of his spaghetti western, past. And it wasn't necessarily that he looked like a revolver, but he was associated with it. So I just sort of used that as my guide. And I created a head shape that I wouldn't necessarily have thought of doing. Like David Bowie, I think I did as I started with an eagle, like a profile of a hawk or an eagle, because he had that sort of sharp beak-like nose and that forward thrusted hair, and it made me think of that. So that's a thing you can do to, like I said, trick yourself into creating interesting exaggerations, is starting with an animal design. Actually draw the animal first. You can check out that lesson again on the Proko YouTube channel on the Caricature playlist. It's just called Spirit Animal Sketching. It's
here in the chat also. I've made sure and give you guys a direct URL. But don't go there yet. Just save that for your watching later. Just finish out with this stream.
Or if you're watching this on demand later, it's already up. Maybe you can pause this video and go check it out now, and then come back to this. But we'll leave now.
After you guys, so the order of operations, I think, should be you open, you right click, open a new tab, that next video, and then you go over to Proko.com, save 20% off with the Black 20 code on Quartz Caricature course, and that's this URL that you're seeing on screen. And then go watch that other video.
Yes, thank you.
So would you say that? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm just adding a little cooler of a color here. I didn't want everything to be super warm, but overall this will be a warm palette, but there's got to be some hints of cools in there, I think, or otherwise it'll be everything will be too sepia quality. What are you about to say?
I was going to ask, would you say that the pace that you're working at right now is indicative of what you would be working at if you weren't doing a live stream with questions and everything?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that we usually end up getting from people is how much longer it's taking them to work on stuff. But you are doing a really good job of balancing talking while actually working on stuff, which is not a skill that everyone has, let me tell you.
Yeah. The few years of live streams that I did, on my own channel really helped that skill. And then teaching, of course, too. I did a lot of that when teaching at the brick and mortar school.
Okay. Do you guys have in the chat any questions about this particular part of the process? Because I do have some other ones here. OG1 Kenobi, who I don't know if he's still here. He was asking so many questions before. He had asked if you've ever met or drawn any of the Office cast in person. If not, what's your favorite celebrity interaction besides Chris Hemsworth?
Well, yes, this is kind of a story that bums me out a little bit because it didn't quite work out.
Mm.
But so yeah, and I mentioned earlier how I drew Chris Hemsworth at an event, and that was because I was actually hired by another actor, Ryan Gosling, to actually work on a movie set first on the set of Crazy Stupid Love, which Ryan Gosling was in with Steve Carell.
Uh-huh.
So I was drawing all the cast and crew that day on set on their last day of filming, and I drew Steve Carell. Didn't really get a chance to talk to him because the whole crew kind of gathered around when I was drawing him. But he did like my stuff apparently, and later on his office contacted me and asked me if I wanted to draw caricatures of the cast and crew of The Office on Steve Carell's last day of filming. And I think I've told this story on my own live stream before. And then like I gave him a quote, I was just keeping it real low actually because I wanted to do it. I didn't really care about the money. So I don't know what it was, but they never called me back. I never got a chance to actually do caricatures on the set of The Office with everybody.
Oh man.
And
that's
in
too
that
bad.
episode, Michael's last episode, he actually gives a caricature to Kevin and says, "Hey, don't be a caricature, Kevin," and he rips it up. And I'm like, oh, they must have hired an actual artist for that day. It wasn't me. And they got someone to draw a caricature of Kevin and ended up on the air.
Dang. This is so close.
I know, so close. I didn't get a chance to meet him and draw him, which was fun, and that's cool. But yeah, man, I was a huge Office fan, and I was like, yes, I'd love to come draw caricatures. So you guys.
Yeah, I imagine it was probably just one of those ones where someone was like, "Oh no, yeah, like it's like a grip or something whose brother does it or something already."
Probably, yeah. They said, "Oh, then we'll do it for free too." I don't know if that was the case.
Yeah,
but Carell's office did end up calling me later on to work on the set of Burt Wonderstone. So I drew caricatures of the cast of Burt Wonderstone.
Okay, it's like a much harder one to reference than saying The Office, but was also a magnificent experience, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We did have one excited reaction from Antonio Blanco saying, "Court, you're alive. Thank you so much for coming back."
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I just got too busy, Antonio, to keep on doing my live streams. On weekends, I often get booked for events. During the pandemic, I wasn't getting much in-person work, so I had a lot of time to do that. But it just wasn't really feasible to keep up a regular schedule anymore. And if I can't do it regularly, I didn't really want to do it because I didn't want to be like inconsistent in my releases.
Yeah, that makes sense. Plus, I mean, like you've got just so many art books in the background to go through, to read and everything. Like, how can you find the time?
Yeah, really.
Cocoa Buds Crossing is asking in the chat, are you following a reference for the final rendering portion, or was that only for the initial sketch?
No, I'm looking off to the side at my Arthur Rackham pieces, just kind of for just a loose guide for my style and the color choices. There's one here. I got a couple on my other screen over there. Maybe I'll keep this up actually, so you guys can see the type of thing I'm looking at. And since it's not an actual copy of that, it doesn't need to be big. But yeah, just as far as color choices and rendering choices, it's that's good to keep something up like that. I'm actually going to put these readers back on so I can see a little bit. Okay, so let's get back onto it. So I've got enough, I think, for the background here. Let's go ahead and I'll do the most important elements since I want to make sure I get enough done here to make for a good show.
Yeah. Right now, we're about to hit the 2-hour mark. We're 45 seconds out from it.
And we can go over, I guess, if we want, right?
Yeah, this is up to you on how long you want to do this, how long you feel is like worth it for you to do.
Okay.
My time is cheap, Court. Your time is the one that costs money.
Yeah, so I've got my Kyle's wet edge for sketching here, and I have to continuously keep this pen on the surface here. I can't lift it up, otherwise I'll get an overlap mark because it uses wet edges. So I'm just kind of continuously coloring this in here, and I'll add some differentiation on my next pass on this here. But in fact, I'll probably just paint right over these the hands.
And then just come back in, cut it out.
Come back and erase them.
Yeah.
It's just easier to paint over them rather than try to paint around them.
Absolutely. There's one thing that I've always wanted from a brush that I've never really been able to get, and it's that when you work with an alcohol-based marker, you don't necessarily have to go all the way up to a line that you've made with a nib. Like you can kind of just barely like nudge up against it, and there'll be a little bit of diffusion that happens as the actual like alcohol-based marker, alcohol pigment and everything kind of diffuses into it. And I've never really been able to get that in digital. no matter whose brush sets I try or anything like that. Because I love that little like imprecision that feels okay when working traditionally. I like this very much. It's a good little touch.
Yeah. So this is where you can really see this brush, like really looks like a nice watercolor simulation with these hard edges here. It's just, if you have too soft of an edge, it's not going to look like watercolors. Let me zoom in a little bit here.
We have a question from Dan. I'm going to let you choose how you decide to take this one rather than trying to interpret it. I notice you're also doing some specific shadows here. Will you do a specific shadowing portion or just mix it in as you go?
Yeah, I'm just going to shade and add shadows as I go, because that's my method. I don't, have a special technical process for doing it. Like I don't do it on a separate layer or anything like that and preserve the primary layer. And I'm not really about that. I'm just definitely more of a traditional approach type of guy. And if I can keep it all just simple, like the way I would do it if I was working with real materials, that's how I kind of try to replicate that look when I'm doing it digitally as well.
Mm-hmm. Cocobud's Crossing saying that you would love to see a live stream with Aaron Blaze sometime. He's one of your favorite animators. That man, he stays live streaming. You can definitely catch him live streaming on a bunch of different platforms regularly. But we will have a video coming out with him here on November 22nd, the day that Procreate Dreams comes out. He did a demo of the software at Lightbox that we recorded. So even the people who weren't at Lightbox will get to see that here on the 22nd. So you can really know if you want to buy Procreate Dreams or not. There was a question earlier, someone asking if you had any interest in Procreate Dreams or if you've ever tried to take your caricature style into animation.
Tell me what Procreate Dreams is.
So that is Procreate. They have a new piece of software coming out, still only for an iPad, that is basically just Procreate, but you're doing animation only rather than you getting to do it like in kind of like the hacked in way that they were doing before.
Oh, okay. So, but you create the artwork in Dreams as well, or you do it in Procreate and then bring it into Dreams?
All made exclusively in Procreate Dreams.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So no, I have no experience with it. Didn't even know it existed. I don't really work on an iPad. I mean, I have one, but I don't really use it for art, honestly. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting piece of software. I do like, again, that it's not it's a one-time buy, not a subscription license kind of situation. I like that a whole lot. But yeah, have you ever tried to do any sort of animation applying the things that you know from Caricature?
No. I mean, I did work on an animated film last year for Disney, but I only did the background paintings.
I see.
And that was for the movie Disenchanted, which was on Disney Plus.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was great fun experience.
Oh, it was so cool. A lot of like intense work though, like very specific requirements as far as what the artwork looked like, because it had to match a certain art style. So the first month of that job was just trying to get the art style down and redoing my images over and over again with the art directors who were very patient with me. But that's the main thing about working in animation is your style has to take a back seat to someone else's idea of like how you would color and interpret something. But it was great fun. I really enjoyed working on it.
Was there anything that was kind of an unexpected part of the experience?
No, not really. I mean, I learned a bit more about Photoshop, about how, certain workflows to speed things along. What else? Just, like, oh, hey, here's a shortcut to doing all these trees, because we had to do a lot of trees. Here's how we set it up and do it so you can actually edit and change the trees really quickly. Here's some stamp brushes you can use for the leaves, that sort of thing. But
okay, that's honestly that is one of those strengths for working digitally. Some stuff like that.
Yeah. The whole movie. Yeah, what I did was all digital. Basically, I worked at home, doing this remotely.
So there are a couple other questions here, but I want to reward this person for doing a super chat message. They paid to ask you the question: why do people always stream when I'm working? I work as a live caricature artist. What advice can you give to improve my exaggerations?
Well, I do a lot of live caricatures myself, of course, and I'm not the biggest exaggerating guy, but I like played around with it a bit, during certain periods when I was working and getting bored and wanted to do something a little different. I think when you're doing live, as opposed to doing studio work, where you don't have a chance to do all those, associations or word games or making lists, you can't do that when you're working in a live situation. The thing about the live situation is really your mental attitude, I think, has to be in that zone of not caring or not giving an F about how it turns out. You really have to be very bold, very confident that what you're doing, the client's going to love. Because I think most of the thing that holds people back in live caricature from exaggerating is how the guest is going to react when they see it. And you want to make sure they don't hate it, don't walk away, or if it's a situation where you're selling it, you want them to pay you for it. So there's all these mental blocks to doing good exaggerations when you're working live. You just have to have that attitude of, I don't care how it's going to turn out, other than it. You want it to look good, of course. You want it to look like the person. When I say don't care, you mean like flattering wise. You don't care how it turns out or how they're going to react to seeing their likeness that way. Because like I talked about, my friends in Hawaii who do these wacky, crazy exaggerations, and they get away with the most insane stuff. And the people love it. They absolutely love it. And they build themselves up marketing wise as the people who do that sort of thing. So it helps going into it. Like the client or the guest knows that's what they're going to get when they sit down in front of them. They're going to get a caricature in that style. So make sure you're representing yourself in a way that says that shows your style that you want to do. So you have to practice at home, I guess, to get that style down, maybe doing celebrity photos or working from photos of your own, and doing that crazy live quick style and bringing that in front of the guests. And you just can't care. You can't let that hold you back, because the mental roadblock thing is what really holds you back in caricature.
I think of wise words. I hope that they were worth your $5, Carlos. Take that and really try to apply it. All the advice in the world is only as good as your attitude and ability to apply it to what you do. So we had a couple of questions. Sita was asking, can you follow the caricature course without working digitally at all?
Oh, of course. Yeah. It's not dependent on any particular material, that's for sure. In fact, a lot of the demos I do are like pencil and charcoal in the course. So a lot are digital, but it just depended on what I was doing that day or where I was. It's whether I went into the Proko studio to film it under the camera or whether I did it at home on my Cintiq. So yeah, there's both demos, and the lessons are totally transferable to any medium, except maybe sculpture, because it's just a whole different process for sculpting.
Yeah, I do think that. So there was actually a video that was made following one of your caricature lessons on Proko 3D.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they took the lessons that you had done about doing caricature, and I don't know if it was based on your original drawing of Stan as a caricature, or if the sculptor had done the caricature themselves. But yeah, there was one that was heavily referencing your materials at the very least.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think my style can be made into 3D sculptures, most of them anyway, because I do draw with a 3-dimensional intent. Like I want it to look like they could exist 3-dimensionally, because that's just the type of thing, like I said, like I like to see in art and caricature is I like to see them look like they're realistic. And so that's why I've done things that ended up as like character designs for video games or movies or whatever projects, or sometimes people take them into 3 dimensions and do digital sculptures of them. I really enjoy when people do that, because I'm not a sculptor at all, and when I see an interpretation of my work that's done like very true to form, but it's as a sculpture, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like someone did an Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think, for one of my drawings once. I can't remember who it was, and it was just beautiful. It was really well done.
Yeah. If someone was looking to learn sculpting right now, there's a 20% off sale over on Proko.com. We've got lessons on learning to sculpt, whether you want to do something more realistic, some more caricature, or anything like that. You can use that code BLACK20 over on Proko to learn how to sculpt, in case you're interested, Court.
Awesome.
I couldn't not take that chance.
Of course.
To pop in the mention. So let's see. Someone was asking, how would someone begin to work for Disney? Do you find them, or do they find you?
Well, in that particular case, I was friends with somebody who was working as an art director on the film already. And he's a guy I know from the world of caricature. It was a connection I had of a good friend, actually, and he knew I did digital paintings. He knew I did landscapes, so he thought, you know what, he'd be good for this project. And I think that's a direct result. Like me getting that assignment, that job was a result of me following my passions in a lot of way. Like my doing plein air landscape painting, I just do it for fun. I sometimes sell them, but it's not really about that. I just kind of do it for exercise, to exercise my muscles visually. And because I'd like to have, I like to have paintings on my wall in my own house, and which I just use my own. I don't like, and I hope not a lot of people like to hang their own works up in their own house, but with landscapes, I think it's okay because they're very decorative.
Yeah.
And also because I'm cheap and I don't want to buy artwork from other people. But no, I really enjoyed just the art of landscape painting and being able to do it and exercise that. And so the fact that I did that, I was just following that passion for years. It allowed me to get this job on this Disney film because someone thought of me because of my landscape work. And okay. And the fact that I did digital too, they figured I could put the two together.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think from like what you were saying earlier was just kind of like explore things, do things, and usually that leads into more opportunities. Because if you just do the one thing and then suddenly there's not a market for that or any myriad of reasons, if you're limiting yourself to just one thing, it's not going to be as fun for you, and it's probably also not going to lead to many varied opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. I think if you want, do you want to sink maybe like 20 more minutes in here and then
yeah, I think that'll be good. Yeah, I think that'll be about enough time to get done actually too, and get the effect that I wanted to show.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let you know here in 10 minutes when we have that like last 10 minutes, just so you know for sure.
Yeah.
Are there any points in what you're doing right now that you want to make sure and mention to anybody?
Yeah, I'm kind of doing a Court Jones watercolor style right now, and it's not really Arthur Rackham because like I'm using doing lots of little plane changes here with the forms, and he didn't really do that. He does a lot smoother and simpler renderings because his faces are pretty small here. Like in this one here, there's just
it's like a flat.
It's not how I paint basically. So this is one of those things where it's like I'm making a judgment call based on like what I want my painting to look like versus the source material for the inspiration. And I may soften it a little bit. I do want it to still have that Arthur Rackham look. So maybe I will a little bit, maybe soften, like say the face here. I'll get this opaque brush and cover up some of the, paint over some of these hard edges, soften it a little bit. Yeah, this is that brush, the watercolor big round in Kyle's paint box. This is part of Kyle Webster's mega pack, though. I had to dig these out and find them from his mega pack, which has like hundreds and hundreds of brushes in it.
Yeah, it's a massive brush pack. You're a much braver person than me. I went into the ink box and then I decided I've gotten everything I need here, and I did not explore further.
Yeah, I went through the ink box looking for inking brushes for this demo, and I ended up getting like 30. I'm like, I got way too many ink brushes, and I ended up getting 2.
Yeah, usually I think having just a couple for some specific purposes is usually probably the best way to go. Unless you're using something like you were mentioning earlier, where there's like a bespoke purpose for a brush, like leaves and things like that. That kind of stuff I think can be really handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you ever choose to make like your fully rendered work like you would while trying to mimic a person's style like this, and then also mimic the printing techniques? Like there's some dots and stuff that we see in the actual print of the reference that you've got here.
Yeah, and that's just probably a result of the the 4-color printing process, or the plates or whatever. And there might be some misregistration there where they're misaligned, and so you'll get this kind of what's that? Not rosé. There's some kind of name of that pattern that shows up.
Moiré?
Moiré, yeah.
Yeah.
Rosé, that's not right. I'm not sure if we're seeing moiré in here, but yeah, that sort of that printed look. I might, I'm not a specialist in that sort of thing. I think there are the artists who do that technique where they do different colored layers and offset them to make it look like misaligned printing. And I don't really do that. I'm just kind of going more for the aged look in general because I don't, plan on showing this super big and blown up where people are going to notice even that sort of thing. Yeah. I just want it to be big enough for or I want the textures to be big enough to just to be noticeable from viewing it like far back at a full size screen.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Knowing the final like destination of what your piece will be, I think is also a massively important thing. There's that tendency to kind of zoom in all the way and work on something since we can digitally.
Mhm.
But if you're working a little bit larger, and then the final work is going to be published at like 9 by 10 or something, some much smaller thing than what your actual canvas size is, you don't necessarily have to put in all this, like the super small, tiny details. No one will see them. You're just hurting your hands doing them and taking more time.
Mhm.
You're lowering the amount that your client is paying you, basically.
Yeah, the more time
Over
you spend on
time.
something, your wage goes down and down.
Yeah. Let's see. We answered this a little bit earlier, but maybe you have just like a 3 points kind of thing you can say real quick. Paul Christoforos is asking, how do I get funnier feature drawings for caricatures?
Well, yeah, again, we went over it a little bit in different ways here, talking about some exercises you could do for like humor. The main thing is like what I told the artist who was doing the quick sketches: don't care about how it comes out when you're doing the initial decision. Just go crazy. Just try to try to ruin it. Actually, try to do a caricature so extreme that you think there's no way this is going to work. This is going to ruin it if I do this choice. That's like the caricature of a caricature of a caricature exercise on my course, where you have a moderately successful caricature that doesn't have a strong exaggeration. Do a caricature of that and like exaggerate the things that you exaggerated in that first attempt. But make those things even more obvious. And that's just, again, it's sort of a way of tricking yourself to doing funnier exaggeration, is to the caricature of a caricature of a caricature. But yeah, just you really just got to look at it. And also, this is sort of a practical, technical thing. Don't look at your subject too much. Draw from memory. Like, look at your photo reference, study it for 10, 20, 30 seconds, and then go back to your drawing paper and don't really don't refer to it too much, because it'll hold you back a little bit, because you'll want to make it look a little too realistic if you look at your subject too much. I always tell people, draw from your memory when you're drawing caricature. Don't draw from observation.
Yeah.
And then it'll turn out funnier and more extreme.
Yeah, you're letting your memory do some of the characterization.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's, I think, how we remember things. We remember what stands out about a subject, what makes them unique looking.
Yeah.
And so we're caricaturing it in our minds already. So when you try to recall something you looked at, or a person's face, you're recalling the things that stood out about that person, the things that made them different from the average. You're naturally a caricature artist. I think everyone is. I think that's how our brains work and like recognize likeness.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree very much on this one. I think if you're looking for a subject to make a short video about for YouTube Court, I think that's a good one. Just that one idea. Your brain's already doing half the work for a caricature. Let it.
Yeah.
We did have one question much earlier that I think is possibly one that you can talk about while rendering here. It's, how do you make the line art look like a cleaner, more elevated version of the sketch? Whenever I begin looking at the line art, I find that it looks sort of flat, loses some of the character.
Line quality really is, you got to focus on that. If you're not already doing that, just do a lot of line art exercises where you're going from thin to thick and just making that pen become an extension of your hand, where it's we don't even have to think consciously about what you're doing anymore. You got to get that familiar with your tool. And for me, I came from the world of realistic, analog drawing, where I just did marker drawings for years with just pen and ink. And I got a real natural hand for that now, I think. I'm not necessarily the cleanest inker you'll ever see, definitely. It's actually kind of like messy, and jagged, and wavering lines and stuff. But that's okay. That's just kind of my style that I've developed. So that would help, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought I colored the sandwich in the rats earlier, didn't I?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
Did you lose something in a layer, maybe?
I don't know. I'm thinking like, wait, this seems familiar. Like I already did this. But all right, it's all right. So it's basically, I would definitely work on this a bit more, but I don't want to keep the stream too long. So I'm going to just finish up the gruel sandwich here, and then I'm going to do the final steps here to my process to make it look sort of aged.
I do think so. There's something to be said about what Prison Mike was talking about for this. Like here in prison, like the Dementors were the worst part. You eat your own hair and all that. You forget if you've already colored in your sandwich or not. It's hell in here.
Yes. Oh, I've got to color in the hair, and then I see it's too light. So just add some tone to that hair there. Okay.
So I think you're gonna get in here to add some textures and stuff, and I want to make sure and let people know that there's one place that Proko uses paper textures from more than anything else now. I don't know if you're over there or anything, but it's texturelabs.org. There's a ton of free resources on there, and they're good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done stuff off there in the past too.
Yeah, the guy over there, Brady, he's fantastic. Does great video editing stuff. He so many different professional tutorials the guy does, and gives it away all for free.
One little last thing I'm doing here is actually adding some lighter color to the sky outside, just to give it a little bit more of that luminous feelings to differentiate it from the stonework. It's kind of subtle. I don't know if you can really see it here, but it's about as light as I can go in this. I think I'm also hindered by the
paper texture.
The paper textures, which is creating a bit of color behind it. But
yeah, no, I think it reads even at like a smaller scale for this. Like it definitely feels right.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, so now I'm just going to one of the things I like to do is add a little texture. Let me grab. I think I have it out here somewhere.
Is this a thing that you cover in the caricature course?
No, not at all. This is just a thing particular to this type of work. I've got a couple different paper backgrounds that one I know I got from like online. I don't remember. This is this old wrinkled parchment I got from somewhere online years ago, and I've used it so many times. This is actually a scan of my brown paper text sketchbook myself. And it's a lot more regular and even of a texture. And I'm just going to drag that in here just to throw this on top of everything just to see what that does to it. And there's a way of working with this too. Like you can see how it's actually making everything darker and more yellow. If that's the case, you don't want to change things so much. Put it on top here. Turn this into like a multiply layer, which really, it of course makes it transparent, but really changes things. So now I'm going to actually adjust the levels to get it back to more where it was.
It's Control L for anyone at home.
Yeah.
Or I guess Command L if you're on Mac.
And if that's not getting me the results I want, I might, do something else. That's okay. Let me turn that off and re-import that on a new layer here.
OG1 Kenobi says this is like a really old texture. He says you've used it so much it looks worn out.
Yeah. Even digitally, it degrades. So I'm going to bring this down here beneath this layer. Oh, and that really changes things there. Like,
absolutely.
So this is now beneath the watercolor layers. Yeah, everything you do when you move a texture to a different layer really changes the look of things. And then I don't necessarily need to make it a transparent layer, although now it covers up that layer 4 that was beneath it. That was its own texture. So let me try to change this to like multiply, see what that does. Yeah, darkens it too much. Yeah, so this may not be an effect I want to keep. Yeah, it's bringing up, like when I did some opaque white painting on this to cover up that area is showing up now. So yeah, I don't want to do that. So I think having the texture on top of everything actually worked out better because it sort of unifies everything that's beneath it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so here's the like just a close up and without the texture layer.
It looks good.
So it's adding like this layer of yellow that I think works pretty well. And I could add one more texture. I could try this one and maybe replace that layer that I just did. Because when you stack too many layers, it's just kind of like a little too much.
Kind of muddy, yeah. But this one, I mean, you might be able to like bounce back and forth since this one's such a high contrast texture, some overlay, screen or something. Maybe pull something else out of it.
Yeah, change this to multiply or screen, a different color mode.
Yeah.
But anything I do will have to be definitely lightened or I have to change the values. Yeah,
certainly.
I find multiply generally works the best and changes things the least, especially when you then work with the opacity of that layer. or the lightness of the layer. So first I'm going to try to lighten this layer. So I made it back. I turned it back to multiply. I'm going to hit Control L to go to levels. And maybe even reduce the opacity of the layer a little bit. And it's one of those things where I think it's helpful to keep the original like source material out visible too, like this piece by Rackham that I'm looking at, trying to get that same feeling. You know, I don't think the lines read as bleeding out as much as they should. So I may even want to redo that line art layer again, wherever I did that bleed effect. Let's see. It's under ink lines here. Yeah, this is without. That's without the bleed effect. So the bleed effect definitely affects things a lot and adds a lot to it. But since, you know, viewing it this size on the screen, I don't think it really stands out even that much. Yeah, so I'll maybe make a copy of this. There we go. And actually just making another copy of it makes it stand out a little bit more and really softens that line.
Yeah.
And some of the lines, they'll get a little bit brown, maybe a little too brown, where it's a little distracting. So maybe I'll... Yeah, it'll be okay, I think. I might desaturate a little bit so they're not like the brown up against this black now looks a little weird. And that's the kind of thing you just figure out as you go. So I'm going to Control U. Control U controls the hue and saturation. So I'm going to desaturate that that blurred outline a little bit.
And it's not like a one size fits all thing. Each time that you go to do something, like you do a new piece, it'll be different. This balancing act of making something look a little more traditional.
Yeah. It all depends on the size you're working at, the subject matter, how much of an effect you really want it to have. There was one other thing I didn't get a chance to do, and that's the... this will be like the last thing I do. I want to put the design on Prison Mike's headband. Let's see where
it's a good touch.
So that is... Put it right here on a new layer. I'm going to get my... let's try, I guess, the inking brush. That'll probably be all right. Do sort of an off-white color. And I actually need my Prison Mike reference photo. Where did he go? Go to Window. Sorry, I'm just finding it here.
Oh, no, you're fine. You can take a second because I want to remind people there's a sale going on right now. All the things that you're seeing that Court's doing, they're all included in like not this texturing thing, but all of the like the caricature manipulation, making sure that you've got the right kind of look for a person that you're trying to caricature. These are all included in Court's caricature Wow, all my words stopped. The caricature course over on Proko.com, and that's 20% off right now, all the way until the end of the month. Everything on the website, courses, tools, any sort of like reference packs or anything. Those are all 20% off right now until the end of this month. It's our biggest sale of the entire year. There won't be another time where you can buy something for as cheap as it is right now. So if you're trying to learn something, come and find it on Proko, buy it, and learn it. Yeah. And for Cappuccino Sophia, you're asking, what is the bleeding effect you talked about? That's duplicating the line layer and then blurring that a little bit with Gaussian blur, tinting it a little bit so it's an offset color from the original. In this case, it's a little bit of a brown that you filled it with. And just kind of diffuses those lines a little bit.
Yeah, I did that as soon as I finished the ink drawing portion. That was probably an hour and a half into the stream, if you want to go back and look later.
Yeah. I think rewatching this one's going to be a fun one to get to rewatch anyway, no matter what. Even if you do remember the thing, there's some good stuff in here.
So this part will just take another half a minute. It won't take too fast. I'm just doing it pretty loose.
I like the idea of you saying, like, this will just be like another like half an hour, you know. This is like gotta make sure that the texture really wraps around with the headband. You know, it's going to be a high render kind of situation. So,
yeah. Well, what I actually will do is take my eraser just for a quickie, like to dim down the white on the side of the headband a little bit, where it's falling into shadow.
Look at
that. That's a quick way to make it look like it's wrapping around the forms. There we go.
And then
One last thing, I'll do a little bit of dots in the eyes here for the highlights, which is not really an Arthur Rackham thing to do. But it's what I like to do, just bring a little zing of highlights into the eyes there.
Yeah, I was wondering, I noticed that it wasn't something that was present in your sketch at all, like any sort of like overlapping pupil shine or anything like that.
It actually, I think, was, but it was very, very subtle and might have gotten lost in the shuffle. So yeah, there we go. Prison Mike. Oh, let me turn off the pencil layer. I was just keeping the pencil on to do the... Nope.
There we go. Oh, no, that's a lot.
Wait, where's my... I didn't label every single layer as I created it, so I'm like, where are the...
This is what we were talking about. Labeling your layers. So important, guys.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
Got rid of the pencil lines. And if you want my opinion, I would do a few more things on this. I would probably add a bit more, degradation and decay to the cell. Maybe a few bit more hints of like moss or mildew on the walls. A little bit more imperfections. Maybe do a little bit more with Mike's face just to bring out the dimensionality a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's pretty close to what I was imagining I would do with a Arthur Rackham style illustration. So yeah, that's basically it. Thank you everybody for like hanging in there and watching this and asking all your questions and participating, because you helped make the stream better.
Yeah, I think you made it a very easy time for someone to get to hang out through that whole thing. It's fun and interesting to watch.
Yeah.
In case people don't want to just go buy a course for you, despite it being 20% off on Proko.com right now, where can they find you online?
Well, I'm on Instagram. Barely. I hardly ever post on that thing, but I'm just a Court Jones artist on Instagram. You can see my website with just my web portfolio, just my name, courtjones.com. And that's basically it, actually. I don't really do any other socials. I have my Facebook page, but that's for personal stuff. I don't really post anything on there art-wise anymore.
Neither do most people. So you're okay in that one.
Yeah.
Facebook's a dead place now. Okay. Do you have anything coming up that you necessarily want to like promote the most?
No, unfortunately, I can't talk about the project I'm working on right now with the character designs, but I'll definitely, show them when I can. I'm just under non-disclosure.
Okay.
That'll probably be sometime next year, hopefully early next year, where I'm doing some stuff. And other than that, yeah, don't have anything really to talk about. But I appreciate everyone who listened and cared enough to tune in to watch what I was doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great time. For what it's worth, you guys can find me at Peppermint Gentleman across most social networks, or anywhere on Proko. All of the videos that we post every single day for vertical videos. The last one that we posted was actually one of Court's lessons, kind of truncated a little bit, talking about something close to this process, about taking something from digital to traditional kind of looks. Court, thank you so much. I'm going to throw to an ad here, and then everyone, we'll see you guys over on YouTube. I lost it. It's here, I swear. There we go.
So, we need a Black Friday ad. 3 days ago.
Did John write the script?
No, he's out. He had a kid.
That's right. Sean?
He had 2.
Can you do it?
I have 3.
Fine, I'll do it all myself. Give me that dog. Use coupon code BLACK20 to save 20% off of courses to learn drawing basics, digital art, character design, concept art, painting, sculpture, caricature, and anatomy. We also have digital tools from brushes to model reference packs. The sale runs until the end of the month, so go save with code BLACK20 over on Proko.com.
Oh.